I restart civilization in the 27th century. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51, High-rise buildings and underground cities. Wait. Chang Ning suddenly reacted. Zunlu. Did City Lord Yun also send a maid to you yesterday? Zunlu nodded and said, yes. Then you. A gossipy expression appeared on Chang Ning's face. What did you do last night? She said that she could do anything, and we did everything, didn't you? Zunlu looked, as if it was a matter of course. Little brother. How can you be so self-righteous? Chang Ning was powerless to complain, and then turned to look at Xuanyang, and found that Xuanyang, who had been eating silently, blushed and asked Chang Ning, didn't you? Chang Ning sighed. Young Qian stuffed a piece of barbecue in her mouth and interrupted vaguely, I heard from my sister that Xiao Ning asked his maid to come back last night. Xuanyang and Zunlu were immediately surprised. Zunlu said, Chang Ning, could it be that you like men? Chang Ning held his forehead with his hand and said weakly, I'm just not used to doing very intimate things with people I just met. Besides, my little maid, Su Panpan, is too young. Yun Qiansu suddenly realized, I understand. It's a pity that Sister Wen is gone, otherwise I could let her serve you. What the hell is going on? Chang Ning regretted bringing up this topic, so he had to change the subject and said, by the way, Lord Yun, where is the treasure house of your Yuncheng? Is it on the 21st floor? No, on the 3rd floor. 3rd floor? Below? Chang Ning was surprised. He remembered that, when he came to Yuncheng, the huge buildings in Yuncheng were all shabby underneath. From the ground to a height of more than 10 meters, there was originally a glass exterior wall, but now the glass is basically all broken. It was pitch black inside, and Chang Ning couldn't see anything. From more than 10 meters high to the 17th floor, there were no windows in the middle floors, and the exterior walls were purely closed. It was not until the 17th floor that there were windows, which looked like a place for people to live. Chang Ning had been thinking about what the Yuncheng building was used for before the apocalypse. The entire building was built very unreasonably. Only the 17th to 21st floors looked like a normal hotel structure before the end of the world. The rest of the building, such as the 17th floor and below, had a large span of pure metal exterior walls, and there was definitely no natural light inside. Above the 21st floor, there was another huge space, and there were no buildings that could be lived in until 100 meters above the ground. Chang Ning had picked up Richard's business card when he was in the research institute. His address should be on the 168th floor of the building above, which means that the building above was most likely an apartment before the end of the world, and the 17th to 21st floors were most likely a hotel before the end of the world. So the Yuncheng building was a huge complex building before the end of the world. According to Chang Ning's experience in the 21st century, the bottom was most likely a shopping mall. But he was very puzzled as to what the floors above the mall, up to the 17th floor, were used for. The 3rd floor, was it the original location of the mall, or were they the floors that were purely closed? I can't go out normally now. After dinner, let Qian take you there to have a look. Yun Qiansu added. Xuanyang nodded. It's better for the city lord to rest more. I'll take care of the city lord here, and the 3 young people will go down. Chang Ning knew that Xuanyang was avoiding suspicion. After all, he was the mayor of Yao Town, and Yao Town and Yuncheng had no subordinate relationship. From Yun Qiansu's narration, the treasure house was a relatively important secret of Yuncheng, and it was really difficult for him, a mayor of an outside town, to go there. As for taking care of something, according to Chang Ning's experience, Xuanyang basically wouldn't take care of the patient after he used his awakening ability every time. Taking care of patients is a professional and systematic matter and has nothing to do with superpowers. Yun Qiansu heard what Xuanyang said and understood what he meant, so he smiled and said, then I'll trouble Mayor Zun. After a while, everyone finished their simple breakfast, and Yun Qian took Chang Ning and Zunlu to the 17th floor. They had to go down to the ground through the elevator, and then into the low-rise building. What are all the floors below the 17th floor of Yancheng used for? Why are there no windows? Do you want to explore? Chang Ning asked as he walked. Young Kai and Qian thought for a while and replied, only floors 17 to 21 of Yancheng can be lived in. Although there are 3 floors below, they cannot be lived in. What's on the 3rd floor? Chang Ning asked. Young Kai and Qian shook her head. I want to know too. I have been around Yancheng since I was a child, but I haven't found an entrance to get in there. So the 4th to 16th floors are completely enclosed. This doesn't make sense. What about the bottom of the 3rd floor? Chang Ning asked again. There are several floors below, but I don't know how many there are exactly. I've only been to the 2nd underground floor, and the space below is even larger than the space above. I can't get out at all, and I'll get lost if I'm not careful. It seems that there is also a huge building complex underground in Yancheng. According to Chang Ning's life experience in the 21st century, underground buildings generally include garages and underground shopping malls. Buildings like Yancheng usually have subways underground. And judging from the size of Yancheng's buildings, there are usually more than one subway and more than one station. These underground business districts, subways, and garages constitute the intricate layout of Yancheng's underground world. Even before the time travel, when there were clear signboards in underground buildings, Chang Ning often got lost underground in large business districts. Moreover, now that it is a post-apocalyptic wasteland, the underground buildings must be dark and severely damaged. If a normal person goes in, he will probably get lost. What about up there? Chang Ning asked again when the 3 of them had reached the 17th floor and entered the elevator balcony. Above. It's above the 21st floor. I went to the rooftop yesterday. There is a huge platform 100 meters above, and there seem to be many buildings on it. Young Kai and Qian shook her head. I don't know either. You can't get up there. After a pause, she said, when my father was still here, he also told us that we must never ever go to the buildings above. Why? Is it dangerous? My father didn't say that. He just warned me again after I awakened as a grandmaster fighter. Later, not long after I awakened, I ran away. You know what happened next? Chang Ning nodded. Young Kai and Qian did run away from Yancheng not long after she awakened. She was naughty, since she was a child, and had explored most of Yancheng, but before she awakened, she definitely couldn't get up to the upper buildings. After she awakened, her father warned her again not to go up there, proving that there should be at least a threat to the Grandmaster Awakeners. It seems that it is really difficult to go to the 168th floor to find Richard's remains. The 3 walked into the wooden elevator. Chang Ning noticed that the pulley structure of the elevator had been changed. It was modified from a simple fixed pulley to a complex movable pulley structure. The big men in charge of manual lifting greeted the 3 people warmly after seeing them, especially Zun Lu, who had a heartfelt respect for them. How is it? Is it easy to use? Zun Lu was also very happy to see them. Several people nodded hurriedly. It saves a lot of effort. It used to take 5 people to work together. Since you helped us to modify it last night, now 2 people can take turns. Zun Lu smiled at them and entered the elevator with Chang Ning and Young Kai and Qian. Please take us down. Okay. The elevator slowly went down, and Chang Ning carefully observed the wall from the 17th floor down. It was indeed a fully enclosed structure. It was estimated that even flies could not fly in. What a strange building. 10 minutes later, the 3 people walked down the elevator and arrived at the bottom floor. Young Kai and Qian took them to the right and walked a few dozen meters to the right and walked into the building from a dilapidated facade similar to the gate of a shopping mall. Although it was sunny outside, the light dimmed as soon as they entered the building. Most of the glass on the exterior walls was broken, so light could still shine in. But the building in Yancheng was too big. Except for the 10 meters or so outside the door, it was getting darker and darker inside, until it was pure darkness at the innermost part. Young Kai and Qian led the 2 of them through several turns in the dim light, and came to a staircase. This staircase had passages both downward and upward, and Young Kai and Qian led them up. Chapter 52, Master of Iron. I want to learn how to forge iron. This staircase structure should be the fire escape of the shopping mall before the end of the world, which also indirectly confirms Chang Ning's idea. There used to be a shopping mall below. The stairs are spacious and long, with a large distance between floors. After climbing as many steps as 6 or 7 floors of an ordinary building, the three of them arrived at the 3rd floor. After leaving the fire escape, they walked along a corridor for 10 minutes. After passing through several forks in the road, Yun Kai and Qian stopped. The location of this treasure house is indeed very hidden. It will take a long time for people who don't know the exact location to find it. Shanghai City Emergency Disaster Relief Material Allocation Center. Zunlu read a nameplate on the wall. Shanghai City Emergency Disaster Relief Material Allocation Center. Chang Ning's eyes widened. No wonder this place is called the Treasure House of Yancheng. No wonder when the people from Yangcheng and Lincheng came here, they said that you Yancheng can't eat this treasure house anyway, so why don't you share it together? If this is really the Disaster Relief Material Allocation Center of the entire Shanghai city before the end of the world disaster, it must be enough for people from 3 cities to share. A batch of disaster relief materials for 10 to 20 million people is divided among 20,000 to 30,000 people. Everyone should be very wealthy, right? But Yun Xiansu said that this treasure house is very small, probably the size of a room. That doesn't make sense. How could the disaster relief materials for the entire city of Shanghai be stored in a room of only more than 100 square meters? Could it be that? Chang Ning had a flash of inspiration. He suddenly understood why the 3rd floor to the 17th floor is a fully enclosed structure. Because this is the space used for storage. This huge complex building, the bottom 3 floors, and possibly several underground floors, used to be shopping malls. The 4th to 16th floors are storage spaces, the 17th to 21st floors are hotels. Further up, it was originally used for unknown purposes, but now it has become a huge drop space of 100 meters, with high-end apartments on the top. It must be like this. Then this Shanghai Emergency Disaster Relief Material Allocation Center on the 3rd floor may be the key to the storage space on the 4th to 16th floors. It's just that the people of Yancheng have never found the entrance. Thinking of this, Chang Ning got excited, rubbing his hands, and said to Yun Kai and Qian, "Where do we go in?" Because there was a dead end in front of them, it didn't look like there was a passage. Yun Kai and Qian slapped the wall next to her rhythmically for more than 10 times, and the wall with the metallic luster suddenly moved sideways, revealing a passage about 2 meters wide. There were way oil lamps in the passage similar to those on the 21st floor of Yancheng. Yun Kai and Qian led the two into the passage, and after turning 3 corners, they came to a large iron door. Bang, bang, bang. She hit the iron door several times. In the middle of the iron door, a small lookout was opened from the inside, and a pair of cunning little eyes appeared behind it. After the eyes looked at the 3 people for a few times, the iron door opened from the inside. "Kai and Qian, when did you come back?" A thin man who looked to be in his 20s and dressed in tattered clothes walked out from inside. "Just a few days ago," Yun Kai and Qian said as she walked in. The man stood in front of Chang Ning and Zunlu. "Who are you two?" Yun Kai and Qian turned around and said, "This is Brother Xiao Ning and Brother Xiao Lu, our guests from Yancheng. My sister asked me to bring them to see the treasure house." Chang Ning smiled at the man. "My name is Chang Ning. This is Zunlu." The man nodded. "Huandang." Then he made way and followed Yun Kai and Qian into the room. Along the way, they passed through 3 similar large iron gates before entering a room of about 20 to 30 square meters. There were many large iron ingots placed in a mess in the room, as well as a low bed made of animal skins and many daily necessities, which looked very messy. "I haven't been here for more than a month. Why are there 2 more iron gates?" Yun Kai and Qian asked. "Anyway, I have nothing to do here. I often dismantle and build these 2 iron gates inside. I just happened to dismantle them last time you came." Huandang yawned and said boredly, "You are also very miserable. It's like being in prison here." Yun Kai and Qian deeply agreed with his state. "I can't help it. I'm the only master architect in Yancheng. No one else can do the job of guarding the gate." Huandang looked like he was dying. Yun Kai and Qian heard the master architect suddenly react and said to him, "By the way, let me introduce you to this little brother Chang Ning. He is a master craftsman." Huandang's originally lifeless eyes widened, and he looked Chang Ning up and down for a long time. "Master craftsman?" Chang Ning nodded and smiled. "Hello. I just repaired the psychic cannon left by the master craftsman before Yancheng. Then it must be a master craftsman who can make and repair items involving psychic energy. Huandang still stared at Chang Ning as if he wanted to put him in his eyes. This was also the first time Chang Ning saw a real awakened master architect of the architecture department. During the few days he stayed in Yancheng, he also talked with people about the abilities of awakened people in the architecture department. After self-analysis, he should not have any architecture ability, but an awakened ability that is more inclined to repair or restore everything. The two have similarities and differences. The similarity is that they all have to hold some raw materials in order to use their awakening abilities to quickly build some buildings or make certain things. The difference is that the awakeners of the Department of Architecture can only build at the physical level, and they should not have the ability like Chang Ning, who can restore the fired bullets and burned gunpowder into a new bullet. In addition, the awakeners of the Department of Architecture can build a brand new building in a blank place, while Chang Ning must repair the broken things on the basis of the built or completed ones, and currently cannot make brand new things. Since there are no other awakeners like himself, and he has never heard of a similar awakening system, he gave his awakening ability a cool name, Restarter. It means that any property left over from the civilization before the disaster can be restarted. Of course, this is not the first time he has been mistaken for an awakener of the Department of Architecture. Now Chang Ning's external identity is basically the master craftsman of the Department of Architecture, rather than the restarter named by himself. It is too troublesome to explain, and it is necessary to keep a hand. After knowing that Chang Ning was the master craftsman, Huandang kept circling around Chang Ning, making his glasses blurry. When he was about to say something, Zunlu, who had been quiet beside him, spoke. The purity of these irons is very high. Huandang nodded. These are all decomposed from Yanshan bamboo. The purity is not bad, and can be used directly as building materials. Zunlu squatted on the ground, poking the iron ingots and continued, but because the right amount of carbon element was not added, they are all relatively soft. Although they have good ductility and plasticity, their hardness and strength are insufficient. You rely on sufficient thickness to make the iron door hard. This, Huandang scratched his head. This has entered his blind spot of knowledge. Don't you have the iron carbon phase diagram in Yancheng? Zunlu continued. Then, what is that? Huandang was even more confused. Chang Ning gave me a few books with detailed records about iron and steel. Zunlu said. Is this the master craftsman? Not only is he better than himself in awakening ability, but he is also so knowledgeable. Huandang's originally lazy expression gradually became serious, and he even straightened his clothes. Then he bowed to Chang Ning. Master craftsman. I want to learn that too. Chapter 53 Shanghai Emergency Relief Material Allocation Center. Huandang had just bent down to bow when Yan Qian slapped him on the head. He staggered and almost fell to the ground. What are you doing? He turned around and glared at Yan Qian. We are here to see the treasure house. What do you want to do by dawdling here without opening the door? Yan Qian said confidently. Chang Ning smiled and said, no problem, I'll let Zunlu teach you later. Huandang grinned, took out a bunch of keys from his waist, turned to the wall opposite the entrance of the small room, where there was a small door. He put the key into the door lock, turned it a few times, making a clicking sound, and then turned back to Yan Qian and said, okay, take out your key. Yan Qian nodded, took out a key, turned it a few times in the other keyhole, and opened the door. This door actually has 2 locks, and it can't be opened with only one key. However, Chang Ning believed that with Yan Qian's strength, or any master level, or above mountain mover, they should be able to force open this small door. But it is difficult for other awakeners to find this place. Even if they find it, it is difficult for them to break through the 3 or 4 huge steel doors outside. Not to mention that there is a master builder hidden inside, who can repair the iron doors at any time and build more iron doors. In short, the security capabilities of this treasure house in Yancheng are pretty good, and it should be able to prevent the invasion of ordinary master level and lower awakeners. If a master level awakener comes here, a gust of wind system like Lanukian, the lord of Lincheng, should be powerless against the defense of this treasure house, but it is hard to say for the masters of other systems. The door was opened. Yun Kai and Qian waved back, and Chang Ning and Zunlu followed her in. Inside was a storage room of about 150 square meters, with 5 rows of huge shelves. The height of this floor is 6 or 7 meters, so the whole space is still very spacious. More than half of the 5 rows of shelves are empty, and only a small part of the supplies are still piled there. In the past 200 years, Cheng has been taking supplies from here. It is estimated that the things here will be consumed in a few decades. Huandang also followed in and introduced to Chang Ning and Zunlu. This is the food area. The food area is the first and second rows of shelves at the entrance. Most of them are empty, with only dozens of cans left, stacked at the innermost of the shelves. At first, I heard that there were noodles and rice here, which were the staple food of the old world, but those things went bad very quickly. In the first few decades before Cheng discovered this treasure house, they were all taken out and eaten up. Now only these cans with a longer shelf life are left. Several people walked to the canned food box. Chang Ning could see that most of the canned food here was meat, and canned fruits and staple foods accounted for only a small part. No wonder Yun Kai and Qian was so happy to see canned fruits and staple foods outside. These things are also scarce in Yuncheng. Walking one row further in, Huandang continued, this is clothing fabrics. The remaining supplies in this row are much more than those in the food row, with about 1/3 left. Most of the remaining items are chemical fiber products such as polyester. In these long 300 years, natural textiles such as cotton and linen should have almost decayed. There is also a row of police stab-proof vests at the innermost part, about 20 to 30 pieces. The black and gold clothes are all stored in the city lord's house, not in the warehouse. Yun Kai and Qian added beside him. Chang Ning understands very well that such light, space-saving and extremely valuable materials must be in the hands of the supreme ruler before they can feel at ease. Turning around, it is the 4th row of shelves. Before Huandang started to introduce them, Chang Ning saw that most of the boxes on it were printed with red cross marks. They should be shelves dedicated to medical supplies. There are more things left in this row, and more than 80% of the shelves are full. This row should be some medicines, but since the discovery, no one knows what they are for treatment. Medicines cannot be taken randomly, so most of them are left. Huandang introduced beside him. Zunlu walked up to a box and read in the light of the whale oil lamp on the wall. This is Bayer aspirin enteric coated tablets. What is it used for? Huandang asked. Zunlu shook his head. I don't know either, but there should be instructions inside. You can open it and take a look. Huandang was overjoyed. Great. If you can recognize these words, most of the medicines inside should be usable. Chang Ning shook his head and said, forget it. I suggest throwing them all away. Why? Huandang was puzzled. Canned food is expired. As long as there is no obvious rot or deterioration inside, you can try to eat it. At most, it will taste bad or upset your stomach. But expired medicines, some of which can be fatal. All the medicines here should be expired and useless. Chang Ning walked to a few boxes casually and roughly checked the shelf life. Most of them were within 10 years, and they had long exceeded it. Huandang looked at the medicine boxes, his face full of hesitation and entanglement. There is no pharmacist in Yuncheng. If these medicines can be used, how many people can be saved? But he gave up this idea immediately. He believed that with Chang Ning's level of knowledge, what he said must be correct. Chang Ning walked to the corner of the 4th and 5th rows of shelves, pointed to a row of boxes in the corner and said, if the alcohol and gauze here are still intact, they should be able to be used. This is for treating external injuries. Huandang quickly wrote it down, and several people walked forward a few steps and came to the last row of shelves. This shelf was also almost moved, and a batch of tools such as shovels, pickaxes, fire extinguishers, nylon ropes, etc. were left there. This is the sundries area. Yuncheng often uses the goods here when maintaining and repairing houses, and making some things over the years. Huandang came over to introduce. Chang Ning nodded. The things here are very miscellaneous, a bit similar to the configuration he prepared before crossing the black hole. Commonly used tools, lighting facilities, power supply facilities, indoor disaster prevention, personal toiletries, etc. are all available. The most valuable of them should be 2 diesel generators. It is probably because people in Yuncheng now don't know this thing. Even if Yuncheng can produce diesel, they didn't take these two generators out for use. It seems that the value of the last row of shelves is the greatest. If these things can be used correctly, the quality of life of the residents of Yuncheng should be greatly improved. At the end of the last row of shelves, there is a small room separated by an aluminum alloy plate. What's in it? Chang Ning asked. It should be a brain. The old people talked about it, but I forgot what it was called. Huandang scratched his head. Computer? Chang Ning asked quickly. Yes, that's the thing. It's just a pile of scrap metal. No one knows how to use it. It's just that there are not many supplies here, otherwise it would have been thrown away long ago. Chang Ning overturned his previous idea. This computer may be the most valuable thing in this room. Chang Ning said as he walked quickly towards the small compartment. Zunlu had also used Chang Ning's computer and knew how to use it. He followed him and said, Chang Ning, is there a civilization game in this computer? I haven't played it for 2 days and I want to play another round. I don't know. Chang Ning walked into the small compartment. There was no oil lamp inside and it was very dim. He took out his flashlight and scanned it around. Sure enough, there was a desk with a computer on it. This should be the place where the warehouse manager was on duty. Chang Ning thought about his previous guess. From the 4th floor to the 16th floor, could it be the so-called Shanghai Emergency Relief Material Allocation Center? Because judging from the small warehouse just now, it really doesn't deserve this high-sounding name. Then this small warehouse may be the junction of the storage unit and the user unit. In other words, the upper 12 floors are all real warehouses, and this is just a temporary storage place for materials to be shipped out or in, for people to move and hand over. Only in this way can it be called the Shanghai Emergency Relief Material Allocation Center. And will there be any records related to the upper storage space in this computer? He turned around and said to Zunlu, there is no electricity here, you go and move that diesel generator over. He said to Yun Kai and Qian, go back and ask your sister for a few barrels of diesel. Chapter 54, The Great Schism. Yun Kai and Qian had to go through 2 elevators to get diesel, which took at least half an hour. Huandang obviously knew this. He and Zunlu worked together to lift the diesel generator, then ran to Zunlu and asked with a low smile that, Brother Zunlu, what is the iron carbon phase diagram you just mentioned? Teach me. Zunlu looked up at the dark ceiling and said, I can tell from your appearance that you must be older than me. Why do you call me brother? Then I can't call you brother either. Huandang said innocently, I have to show respect to you, right? Zunlu nodded. If you want to show respect to me, you can call me Master Zunlu, the great inventor. Okay. Master Zunlu, the great inventor, can you teach me the iron carbon phase diagram you just mentioned? Zunlu did not refuse, found a small iron stick, gestured on the ground, and began to explain the iron carbon phase diagram to Huandang. But Huandang really had no foundation, so Zunlu had to start from the periodic table of chemical element and go all the way to the simple industrial iron smelting process. Chang Ning was bored listening to this, so he started to walk around the small room. There were several small drawers on the desk where the computer was placed, and he opened them one by one to check. Most of them were paper documents and books. After 300 years, they were almost decayed, and it was difficult to see what was originally printed. There was a book, which was similar to the special plastic that Zunlu had found before, and was well preserved. Chang Ning picked it up and read, A Brief History of the Great Schism, written by Xu Yangfeng, first edition and first printing in 2325 by Hucheng Publishing House. The Great Schism? What is it? Chang Ning became interested and opened the book with the light of a flashlight and began to read. He skipped the table of contents and preface at the beginning and started reading from the first chapter. Standing at the end of the Great Divide, when we look back on this period of more than 200 years of history, most historians believe that the starting point of the Great Divide is in the second half of the 21st century. However, from my personal point of view, I think that, since the first half of the 21st century, the Great Divide has shown signs, and it has swept in with an irreversible attitude, dominating the history of mankind for more than 200 years with a strong impact, bringing indelible trauma to generations. The 21st century is the end of the Golden Age, and to this day, countless people still praise it. and many people have overlooked some signs that occurred globally, especially in the United States, in the first few decades of the 21st century. Golden Age. Chang Ning remembered the message from Richard that he saw when he was in the institute. He set the coordinates of the Golden Age in the black hole program. It turns out that the so-called Golden Age was the universal name for the 21st century by people at that time. This also explains why Richard set the coordinates to 2025 when he lives. This book starts from the political and ethnic disputes in the United States in the 2020s and 30s of the 21st century and slowly tells that history. It contains things that Chang Ning knows, as well as things that happened after Chang Ning traveled through time. He squatted there, continued to read the book with full concentration, and soon read the second chapter. In 2077, America was split into 13 independent countries driven by people with different political views. This event is generally considered to be the starting point of the Great Split. The rapid development of the internet has made it easy for the original minority groups to gather together and make their own political voices. They first used moral kidnapping, then used cyber violence, and then pushed this trend into reality, which really affected politics. Except for the East Asian countries that were basically not affected by the Great Split, America was the luckiest country in this historical period. They split themselves before the disaster. Throughout the Great Split, the 13 new countries were able to maintain basic national functions. Europe, which was influenced by America, was much more unfortunate. The European government was still trying to save it until the Great Split prevailed, and hundreds of people with different opinions and views no longer regarded others as their own kind. This is the direct reason why Europe suffered the most trauma in the 200 years of the Great Split. Below we will introduce that period of history in detail according to the chronology to help readers recall. Chapter 2 mainly talks about the great separatism that prevailed around the world after 2077. This was an extremely chaotic era. As a species, humans were divided into hundreds of different ethnic groups by various different political views. The ethnic groups did not even regard each other as the same kind. They did not intermarry, did not interact with each other, and even the most basic communication became less and less. No traces of other ethnic groups could be seen on their respective internet. It was not until the middle of the 22nd century that the great separatism reached its climax and brought great disasters to people around the world. Humans began to be hostile to each other and fight each other for their opinions. 10 minutes later, Zunlu finally finished drawing a periodic table, and Chang Ning began to read chapter 3. People usually attribute the cause of the Great Schism to the political system established by Western countries in the 20th century. In fact, from a deeper perspective, its source can even be traced back to the humanism of the Renaissance. Today, we know that overemphasis on individual feelings, excessive propaganda of personal heroism, and a set of so-called universal values are not the basis of what makes people human. But in the 21st century, this is the mainstream concept in countries and regions deeply affected by the Great Schism. From the perspective of Western humanism, the third chapter seemed philosophical to Chang Ning, but it was still easy to understand. It deduced the inevitability of the so-called Great Schism from the basic theories of philosophy and sociology. He then turned the book to the fourth chapter. The consequences of the Great Schism are extremely serious. Starting from the political chaos, it brought more than 2 centuries of scientific stagnation and economic regression. Many scholars believe that the Great Schism period is the contemporary Middle Ages. In fact, the trauma brought to human society by the Great Schism is even greater than that of the Middle Ages. Let's break down the specific consequences of the Great Schism one by one. First, after Moore's law reached its limit in the middle of the 21st century, computer science in the next 200 years. Chapter 4 talks about the consequences of the Great Schism on human society. It can be seen that, since the beginning of the Great Schism, human science has been stagnant, and the economy has continued to regress. Chang Ning noticed a data cited in it, saying that in the middle of the 21st century, the number of people in the world who had received more than 12 years of education reached more than 70%, and after the end of the Great Schism in the early 24th century, the number of people in the world who had received more than 12 years of education was less than 20%. People's cultural level is regressing rapidly. Is this the reason why most people can't even recognize words after the world-destroying disaster? Chang Ning immediately denied this idea, because the book clearly mentioned that China was the place that was least affected during the entire Great Schism. Chapter 3 also vaguely mentioned that in the late period of the Great Split, populism prevailed and wars continued. In the end, people ended the farce of the Great Split through the re-enlightenment of Eastern classical philosophical thoughts. Therefore, during this period, the education level of China should not have much impact. The low education level characteristic of the Great Split is not necessarily related to the current phenomenon of almost universal illiteracy in Shanghai. When reading here, there were several rhythmic sounds of slapping the wall outside. Huandong looked up and said, "It should be Qian who is back." He stood up and walked to the outer room of the warehouse to open the door for Yun Qian. After a while, Yun Qian came in with two large barrels, and the warehouse was suddenly filled with the smell of volatile diesel. Chang Ning folded the corner of the page he was reading, put the book into his backpack, and prepared to read it later when he went back. Then he took the diesel from Yun Qian. He turned his head and looked at the diesel generator and computer. These two machines did not seem to have any damage on the outside, but I don't know if they can operate normally when they are actually used. But this is not a problem. He transferred part of the power of the Stasi in his mind and enveloped the diesel generator. Suddenly, the diesel generator flew into the air, disassembled into countless small parts, and then refreshed one by one, and finally reassembled, and slowly fell to the ground. Huandong was stunned. The awakened people of the Department of Architecture can quickly build houses or manufacture items, but they first need to have a blueprint in their minds. That is, they must know what specific parts this thing is made of, where each part is located, what role it plays, what proportion of raw materials are needed, etc. These must be known in advance to successfully make and build. In Huandong's eyes, Chang Ning's appearance of lifting a heavy weight is as if he completely understands every part of this mysterious diesel generator and knows all the principles. This profound level of knowledge. Huandong almost knelt down again. Chang Ning didn't notice him and turned to look at the computer. Although he can also repair or refresh this computer instantly. But he was entangled. What if the files in the computer are refreshed during the refresh process? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55. Survival is always a low probability event. To be on the safe side, Chang Ning did not use his awakening ability to refresh the computer directly. Instead, he found a small brush from the last row of shelves, opened the computer case, and cleaned it inside and out. He also took down the pluggable devices in the computer, such as memory sticks and graphics cards, and cleaned them again. It seems that the book A Brief History of the Great Schism is right. This computer made in the 24th century was successfully cleaned by Chang Ning, who came from the 21st century. It can be seen how slow the development of computer technology has been in those 200 years. After the cleaning and assembly were completed, Chang Ning instructed Yun Qian to pour diesel into the generator's fuel tank. Then he started the diesel generator. Chang Ning connected the generator and the computer through a well-preserved power strip found on the last row of shelves. I hope the output voltage of the generator matches the input voltage of the computer, Chang Ning muttered in his heart. However, since this generator is stored here, the probability of voltage matching is very high. Chang Ning took a deep breath and pressed the start switch of the computer. 5 seconds later, the computer screen lit up. He clapped his hands excitedly. It works. Zunlu was also very excited, staring at the computer screen, not knowing what he was thinking. Huandong was simply dumbfounded. He had been guarding this warehouse for several years and had seen this computer countless times, but he never knew that this thing was so magical that it could light up by itself and display some things he couldn't understand. Yun Qian had seen Zunlu playing with the computer, but now she didn't feel anything. She yawned, walked to the outer room where Huandong lived, found his bed, and lay down to sleep. The most things this little girl did every day were eating and sleeping. After more than a minute, the computer was finally started. This is an ordinary personal computer, and the system installed is very similar to the Windows used by Chang Ning, and Chang Ning can easily control it. However, after nearly 300 years of precipitation, the keyboard and mouse equipment are so old that they are almost unusable. Chang Ning spent a lot of effort to move the mouse. An emergency disaster relief material allocation and storage system was installed on this computer. It seems that Chang Ning's guess was correct. This is indeed the storage platform for the material center. However, the storage system could not be opened, and it was prompted that the internal network was not connected. The civilized world has been destroyed for 300 years. Chang Ning believes that 99% of the internal network here has been completely destroyed. There is no other way. He tried to find some clues in the files stored in the computer, like the computer in the laboratory. Unfortunately, after searching around, except for the personal record documents of several warehouse managers, no files related to the material center were found. Chang Ning couldn't help but feel annoyed. It seems that he still needs to do a carpet search here himself. He doesn't believe that such a large space, from the 4th floor to the 16th floor, has no entrance. There is no other way, so he had to open the administrator's personal record document to have a look. Chang Ning estimated that the records here are similar to Richard's documents, all of which were inspired by the arrival of the end of the world. Who would write this normally? There are more documents here than Richard's, as many as 3. Chang Ning opened the first one first. The Shanghai Municipal Management Committee has issued a first-level disaster relief preparation order. I thought I would be very busy today, but, strangely, why is it more deserted than usual? When they said there were 2 suns in the sky, I also went out to see them. It was indeed spectacular. But the new sun did not seem to have any lethality. What kind of disaster is it? I don't understand. The transport robots have all been put into storage, and it seems that nothing will happen today. I will search for news online later. I always feel that something is very strange, and I feel uneasy. What happened? God bless you. Amen. The diligent administrator Xiao suddenly wanted to record the above content today, July 20th, 2331. July 20th. If I remember correctly, Richard's document in the laboratory was signed on July 21st, which means that this document was written one day before Richard left the laboratory, and the disaster had already begun at that time. The so-called world-destroying disaster is not a nuclear war, not a meteorite, not a virus, nor an alien invasion. It is 2 suns. Richard's document mentioned that sun happened to appear, which should refer to this second sun. Another sun suddenly appeared in the sky. Could it be a supernova explosion? No. Even if it is Betelgeuse in Orion, a red giant that is relatively close to the solar system. In the era when Chang Ning lived, astronomers had calculated it. If Betelgeuse explodes as a supernova, a dazzling star with a visual magnitude of -12 can be seen on Earth. It is almost as bright as a full moon. But this is still far from the brightness of the sun's visual magnitude of -26. To have the feeling of 2 suns, this supernova must have a visual magnitude of at least more than -20. Compared to the vast universe, Betelgeuse, a supergiant star more than 600 light years away from the solar system, is already an absolute neighbor, face to face. Some stars closer than Betelgeuse, such as Sirius, Proxima Centauri, etc., are unlikely to have supernova explosions because their mass is not enough. Even the explosion of Betelgeuse could not have the effect of 2 suns. Chang Ning could not imagine that other stars could cause such an impact. So, it should not be a supernova explosion? Then what is the other sun? He continued to open the second document and read it. Another document has been issued by the higher-ups, telling me that I can take a vacation, permanently. Haha, my bad premonition is as correct as ever. This morning, governments of various countries have issued statements about the apocalypse. They said, the survival of life has always been a low probability event, and chaos is the eternal theme of the universe. Meaning, there are only a few days left, so everyone should do what they should do. Entropy increases and decreases, entropy decreases and increases. In short, we ordinary people will never understand. There are less than 3 days left. Humans around the world, as well as animals with similar complex structures to humans, will die one after another. I remembered a sentence in Dream of Red Mansions. It's like a forest of birds eating up all the food, and the land is covered with white snow, so clean. It turns out that not only family, power, and wealth will disappear, even humans themselves, and the creatures on the earth themselves will disappear. Everyone should go back to their own homes today and enjoy the last time with their loved ones. It's a pity that I'm the last batch of orphans of the Great Split, and I don't like socializing. The end of the world can only be spent alone. Xiao, the Waste Manager, July 21st, 2331. It seems that on July 21st, governments around the world issued a notice that humans will become extinct in a few days. The survival of life has always been a low probability event. Chang Ning has heard this statement in the 21st century. It is really a very lucky thing that the earth can give birth to life, which requires many precise arrangements and combinations. And life can give birth to wisdom, which is a super low probability thing. So far, humans on earth have not discovered any other alien life. Whether there is only one civilization in the entire universe is still a mystery. The entire human race, along with many creatures on earth, will die in a few days. Chang Ning can feel the despair of people at that time. However, the current situation is that it is obvious that humans have survived, and even many animals have survived. Although it is a post-apocalyptic wasteland, there is finally a continuation of species. The predictions of various countries on Earth at that time were obviously incorrect. So, what was the newly emerged sun at that time, and why did the countries make wrong predictions? Chapter 56 Gamma Ray Bursts and Monuments of Human Civilization. The last document. Chang Ning calmed down, moved the mouse with difficulty, and opened it. Experts say that after the Great Schism, mankind will usher in a great prosperity lasting more than 100 years. In a short period of time after the Great Schism ended, controlled nuclear fusion was used in business, artificial intelligence AI technology improved rapidly, all kinds of novel things emerged in an endless stream, and all kinds of new job opportunities made everyone full of energy. Just last month, I heard that they have restarted the plan to immigrate to Mars. Damn it. How long have I enjoyed the benefits of free electricity bills nationwide? It was not easy to end the damn Great Schism, and everything was obviously developing in a good direction. Why is the end of the world coming at this time? If humans are given a few hundred more years, we should be able to survive this time, right? If humans did not start the damn Great Schism after the 21st century, and science continued to develop, this time would probably also be able to survive, right? Unfortunately, everything is if. Unfortunately, this is what happened. Looking back on the first 10 years of my life, I still have nightmares. But the scenes of the past few years will appear in my dreams, and I will wake up with a smile. After waking up, I thought that the world has ended, and I cried again. Is there a mysterious force in the universe that restricts the development of intelligent life? I saw many people on the internet talking about the theory of cosmic will. So the so-called cosmic will, the so-called God, can't tolerate humans? Oh, my nosebleed is flowing again. The time is really coming. I feel that I don't have the strength to write another diary. Let's end it alone, right here in this former job. What a failure. I heard that they use the last 2 days to build a monument to human civilization in the Arctic Circle. Is this to commemorate the failed human civilization? Xiao, the most failed of the failed humans, July 23rd, 2031. This document was written a day later, on July 23rd. According to this document, the warehouse manager is already terminally ill and will soon die. It is estimated that most humans and some animals in the world will be in this state that day. It seems that this doomsday disaster is a persistent and irreversible disease. No matter how you look at it, it looks like the earth has been swept by a gamma ray burst. Gamma rays damage the DNA of humans and other animals, causing them to suffer various diseases and gradually die within a few days. Chang Ning saw a statement in the 21st century that there have been several famous mass extinctions in the history of the earth. The earliest one occurred in the Ordovician period 400 million years ago. The cause of that mass extinction may be a gamma ray burst. It is speculated that it was because the solar system was running to a certain point in the Milky Way at that time, and there happened to be two black holes colliding thousands of light years away from this point, and the gamma rays emitted by the collision of black holes happened to sweep across the Earth. The probability should be less than 1 in 100 million, but it did happen. Any event with a probability of 1 in 100 million in a year will become a high probability event after a wide span of 4 billion years. That gamma ray burst destroyed the DNA of most organisms on the Earth and the ozone layer above the Earth, causing more than 85% of the Earth's organisms to die in a short period of time. It is a bit similar to the scene in 2331. Is the Earth so lucky that it encountered a black hole collision event nearby again? That's not right. Richard and Xiao both said 2 suns, and the collision of black holes will not emit any light. After reading these 3 documents, Chang Ning only summarized 2 relatively useful information. First, the world-destroying disaster was caused by a new sun. Most people on Earth died in just a few days, suspected to be swept by a gamma ray burst. Second, there is a human civilization monument in the Arctic Circle. If he has not been able to find Matter X and returns to the 21st century, he may go and have a look. He took a long breath, turned off the computer, and stood up. Is there no civilization game in it? Zunlu asked. No. You look very uncivilized now. Chang Ning watched Zunlu lift up his trouser legs in a very indecent posture, squatting there with his butt sticking out, writing and drawing on the ground. Huandong did not notice that there was anything wrong with Zunlu's appearance. He stared intently at the symbols drawn by Zunlu on the ground. For him, let alone the various chemical symbols in the periodic table, he didn't even recognize a single simple Chinese character. Everything had to be learned from scratch. But he was very enthusiastic, and it seemed that his learning progress would not be too slow. Chang Ning shook his head and did not disturb the 2 masters and apprentices teaching, but turned and walked out. Outside, Yun Kai and Qian secretly took a can of fruit at some point. She had finished eating the can. She was lying on Huandang's dirty bed, sleeping soundly, with a trace of saliva from the corner of her mouth flowing all the way to her chin. Chang Ning decided to search carefully around here, because if this is a storage center, then it must be not far from the material warehouse, and transportation is convenient. The diary of Ji Xiao, the warehouse manager, mentioned that intelligent robots are used here to manage storage. But robots also need transportation channels, and it is impossible to transfer materials across the wall. The 4th to 16th floors of this building are the disaster relief material storage center of the old world. There should be countless materials stored, and the environment in the warehouse should be very suitable for material storage. Chang Ning believes that there must be a lot of things that can still be used here. Since the doomsday disaster occurred in the old world, the human leaders knew in a short period of time that this was an irreversible event of universal extinction, and thus gave up using the materials here. Then Chang Ning will not be polite to the things here. Where to start looking? Chang Ning, who came to the 3rd floor for the first time, didn't have any ideas. He had to carefully search the walls in the warehouse and Huandang's guardroom. There was nothing particularly strange. All the walls were smooth. Although they were somewhat corroded and worn, there was no sign of any secret door. Maybe outside these 2 rooms? He kicked Yun Kai and Qian. Get up and work. Yun Kai and Qian rubbed her eyes, pouted and said angrily, I just fell asleep. Didn't you sleep at night? How can sleeping at night be the same as sleeping during the day? Do you vomit out your breakfast and eat it as dinner? Yun Kai and Qian stared at Chang Ning. What you said makes sense, and I don't have anything to refute. Chang Ning sighed, but there is really something to do. I suspect that the 4th to 16th floors of this building are all warehouses similar to that treasure house. You and I look around here to see if we can find the entrance. If we find the real treasure house, we can probably find tens of thousands of cans. You can eat cans until you vomit. Yun Kai and Qian's eyes lit up. There is such a thing. Why didn't you say it earlier? Let's go. The 2 came out of Huandong's guardhouse and walked slowly along the corridor they came from, relying on the way oil lamps on the wall. Along the way, Chang Ning carefully observed the walls on both sides. When encountering a fork in the road, Chang Ning would also take Yun Kai and Qian in with a flashlight to search carefully. but until the location of the first big iron gate, he found nothing. In fact, it is true. If it is so easy to find, it is impossible that the people in Yunqing have not found the entrance to the 4th floor until now. Is this entrance in the area outside the iron gate? In that case, the transportation process is a bit long. I don't know what the people who built this storage center in the 24th century thought. Maybe the intelligent robots don't care about this distance? There is no way. Chang Ning had to take Yun Kai and Qian out of the big iron gate and continue searching in the area near the 3rd floor. The 1st to 3rd floors of this huge building are similar to the structure of a shopping mall. The corridor where they stayed before is similar to the fire escape in the shopping mall. After walking out of the corridor, there is a wide hall, dark and gloomy, and you can't see the opposite side. There is a huge atrium in the middle of the hall that runs through the 1st to 3rd floors. Chang Ning has seen many such structures in shopping malls in the 21st century. While thinking about where to start the search in the hall, there was a noisy sound of footsteps from the patio. Damn. Finally out. A man's voice came from below. Chang Ning stretched his head out of the railing on the 3rd floor and looked down. He saw a dark hole on the ground, and 2 men and 1 woman crawled out of it. Chang Ning actually knew one of them. Please recommend, please collect, and please read during the new book period. Thank you very much. Chapter 57. Don't mess with 3 types of people when traveling in the world. Hey, come and take a look. Chang Ning said softly to Yun Kai and Qian. Yun Kai and Qian walked to the railing curiously, trying to stick her head out to look, but found that she was not tall enough. The railing was almost as high as her head. Chang Ning smiled at her, squatted down, hugged her legs, and lifted her up. Now Yun Kai and Qian could see clearly. The 3 people below were all fully armed, and their equipment was only better than that of the people from the Yunqing police station. One of them looked very familiar. It was the man named Xiang Bao whom they met in the basement of the East Hall of the Shanghai Museum that day. When enemies meet, they are particularly jealous. Last time, Yun Kai and Qian and Chang Ning were not paying attention and Xiang Bao slipped away. Yun Kai and Qian still feels aggrieved about it. Chang Ning suspected that Xiang Bao had some special ability like passing through walls, so he could disappear silently. At this time, Xiang Bao and the other 2 people had just climbed out of the pit below. The 3 of them were sitting next to the pit and panting. I will never explore such a deep place again. Another man collapsed on the ground, looking like he was about to die, grinning, his chest heaving up and down like a bellows, sweat flowing down from his forehead and all over his face. Xiang Bao and the woman were not much better. Xiang Bao patted the big backpack they brought with them and said, "It's okay. This time the harvest is not bad. It's much better than those ruins on the surface." His companion rolled his eyes. "If you weren't in the front, those cave dwellers really scared me to death. When I first met them, I thought I had encountered a large group of crazy ghosts. That huge group." The 3 were sighing with emotion after surviving the disaster and suddenly heard the sound of a heavy object falling. Turning around, they saw a little girl who looked 8 or 9 years old jumping down from the upper floor. On the 3rd floor next to them, a young man was still walking down the broken escalator quickly. "Hey, Kai and Qian, why can't you take the normal way with me?" Yun Kai and Qian ignored Chang Ning, slowly stepped forward a few steps, walked in front of the 3 people, and looked down at them. "Who are you? Whose kid is this? Did you know it's dangerous here?" Xiang Bao's companion pouted his mouth and showed his big yellow teeth and kept chattering. The woman also frowned and looked at Yun Kai and Qian, feeling that the little girl's eyes were unfriendly. Xiang Bao, however, looked as if he had eaten a fly and smiled bitterly. "How come I met you just after I came out? What a coincidence. What a coincidence. Yes, what a coincidence." Chang Ning ran down the 3rd floor at the fastest speed, stood next to Yun Kai and Qian, hugged his arms together, and looked at Xiang Bao in the same posture. Xiang Bao's 2 companions were somewhat puzzled. The woman said, "Xiang Ying, who are these 2 people? Do you know them?" Xiang Ying? Before Xiang Bao could answer, Chang Ning frowned and stared at him. "Did you give us a false name last time?" "Hey." Xiang Bao grinned, trying to keep himself smiling. "A name? It's just a code name. How do you say that word? External things." "Yes, external things. You can call me whatever you want. It's me." Look, you recognized me at a glance. The woman also frowned and said, is Xiang Eyeing your real name? Xiang Bao coughed. It's alright. You can call me anything. Xiao Yi, you don't know me in these 3 days underground? How am I to my teammates? There's nothing to say. The woman called Xiao Yi frowned and thought for a while, nodded, then climbed up and stood behind Xiang Bao as if she wanted to fight against Yan Qian Qian and Chang Ning with him. She also winked at the other man, and the man stood up reluctantly and stood next to Xiao Yi. Chang Ning said with a straight face, no matter what your name is, our last festival has not yet passed, and you left without saying goodbye. It was very difficult for us to find you. Xiang Bao did not get up, just sat on the ground, and said with a smile, what kind of festival can there be? It's just an unexpected encounter in the ruins. This kind of thing is very common, right? He turned his head and looked at his two companions, wanting to get their approval. An unexpected encounter? Are you going to rob me if I meet you by chance? Chang Ning took a step forward and put his hand in his pocket where the Desert Eagle pistol was. Thinking that this Desert Eagle was left to him by Xiang Bao, he sighed again and felt a little more pleasing to the eye when he looked at Xiang Bao. There is no robbery. It's just communication. Do you know what communication means? When we relic hunters meet in the wild, we often communicate with each other. You kids who grew up in the city don't understand this. But it doesn't matter. Didn't I exchange my bag with you? You didn't suffer any loss. Young Qian Qian said impatiently, you talk too much nonsense. I just don't like you now and want to beat you up. Do you have any objection? Beat me up. Xiang Bao was overjoyed. Just beat me up. Also, leave the things you explored this time. Chang Ning added from behind. Xiao Yi behind him couldn't stand it anymore and said, why? Listening to your conversation, you have already robbed Xiang Eyeing once, and you want to do it again. It's too unreasonable, isn't it? Xiang Bao finally stood up and sighed, give it to you, all to you. Xiao Yi and the man took a step forward together. Why are you so scared? I didn't see you so scared when facing so many cave dwellers just now. Xiang Bao smiled bitterly, give them all, give yours too, there is no other way. Do you know who she is? He pointed at Yan Qian Qian. The two of them looked puzzled. Who is it? The sister of the Lord of Yancheng. Do you know her? That Grandmaster fighter? The two were shocked. Xiang Bao nodded. It's her. You guys go. This has nothing to do with you. I caused this. I will handle it alone. Xiao Yi couldn't bear it and said, but Xiang Eyeing. The man next to her pulled her sleeve and winked at her, meaning to leave quickly. Xiang Bao took a step towards Yan Qian Qian and blocked the two people behind him. With his hands behind his back, he kept gesturing, go quickly, go quickly. The man had a determined look in his eyes, took Xiao Yi's hand, and walked out. They've already left. Chang Ning had been watching the show. Xiang Bao looked back and made sure that the two people had gone far away. He showed a smirk again. The things on the ground were brought up by the three of us who spent 3 days digging down there. Let's split the profits 50-50 and put the past behind us. How about that? We'll be friends when we meet in the future. Chang Ning frowned. 50-50? Xiang Bao's smile froze. 40-60? Young Qian Qian waved her little fist and said to him, it seems that you still don't understand the current situation. Xiang Bao smiled bitterly. My little aunt, didn't I just try to rob you? Is it necessary to hold a grudge? Isn't this a common thing in the wild? You didn't suffer any loss. Besides, if you deal with my opponent now, how will the relic hunters view Yancheng? Will any relic hunter dare to come to Yancheng to exchange things with you in the future? Young Qian Qian said, it's none of my business whether they come or not. Xiang Bao's face was dull. Isn't your sister the mayor of Yancheng? How can it be none of your business? Young Qian Qian smiled, and her calves exerted force suddenly. She rushed to Xiang Bao in an instant, grabbed Xiang Bao's thick arm, and swung Xiang Bao up from the air, just like before in the basement of the Shanghai Museum. Xiang Bao's whole body made a semicircular movement again. Bang! Dust flew. Ahem. Xiang Bao slowly got up and looked at Chang Ning in confusion. Don't you care about her like this? Do you have any bottom line in Yancheng? Chang Ning shook his head. I'm sorry, I'm not from Yancheng. Also, I don't know if you have heard of this saying. What is it? When walking in the world, don't mess with three kinds of people: women, children and blind people. Xiangbao's forehead was full of question marks. What is the world? Who said this? I said it. Chang Ning pointed at Yan Qian. You made a mistake that day because you messed with her. She accounted for two types. Oh, yes, there was also a blind man talking to you at the time. So, you messed with three types at once. Xiangbao recalled the way Zunlu talked to him at that time. It seemed that he was always looking at the ceiling. It should be a blind man. So, Xiangbao felt very confused now. So you come back to Yancheng with us, and then open the bag yourself, and show it to us. If the stuff is heavy enough, maybe I can spare your life. He tilted his head, and looked at Yan Qian. Yan Qian nodded. It will feel much better after beating him. You can do whatever you want with him. Then let's go. Chang Ning kicked Xiangbao. You go in front. Hurry up. Chapter 58 Mechanical Master. Xiangbao carried the bag obediently, and was escorted to the 21st floor of Yancheng by Chang Ning and Yan Qian. It was not that he did not want to run. As a Hurricane Awakener, he was still very confident in his speed. However, one of the people escorting him this time was a master fighter, and the other was an awakener of a system he could not recognize, but his ability was extremely strange. So he decided not to put himself in danger. He also judged from the facial expressions of the two people that at least his life was not a problem. After meeting them last time, he used the second awakening ability to escape. He had never used this second ability in front of others. Everyone who met him for the first time would subconsciously think that he was an awakener of the mountain mover system. He was tall and muscular, and always had heavy equipment on his body. But those who had fought with him knew that he was actually an awakener of the hurricane system. They were often deceived by his appearance, and would fall into a disadvantage in the fight. But no one knew that he had a second awakening ability, which was also his trump card. After he escaped that time, he thought he would never meet the three teenagers again. Unexpectedly, he met two other relic hunters on the road, who said that they found some valuable things in the underground of Yancheng, and needed a companion to explore together. Xiangbao asked about Yancheng's information, and confirmed that the girl he met that day was the younger sister of the new city lord of Yancheng and the daughter of the old city lord. But she had left Yancheng for a long time, and there was no news about when she would return. So he hesitated for a while, and promised the two people that it would take only 3 or 4 days to complete the exploration of the ruins. After getting the things, he would fly away and never come to Yancheng again. Anyway, Yan Qian didn't know what her real name was, or where she came from. But who would have thought that this little evil star would return to Yancheng just when he had just completed the exploration and happened to block their exit. Alas, this is fate. He sighed in his heart. However, they shouldn't have seen the second awakening ability that he used when he escaped last time. At that time, he confirmed for a long time that none of the three of them noticed him. And they didn't notice it until he ran away. They must not have noticed it. He encouraged himself in his heart. But he didn't know what Chang Ning was thinking. The reason why Chang Ning wanted to escort Xiangbao back to the 21st floor of Yancheng was because he thought it was strange that he escaped last time. He and Zunlu both confirmed that the door of the basement of the Shanghai Museum was closed at that time, and the sound of the door opening was very harsh in the dark basement. Therefore, it was impossible for Xiangbao to open the door and escape. But he just disappeared out of thin air. Therefore, there must be some secrets about this person. And this secret is related to the weird mobility. Chang Ning decided to find out first. He intuitively thought that this secret would be of great help to him in exploring the floors above the 4th floor. The two of them had their own ulterior motives, and Yan Qian was yawning boredly. They came to the 21st floor, Yan Qian's room together. Chang Ning and Yan Qian sat down on the comfortable soft leather chairs together, and then he said to Xiangbao with shaking legs, "Open it. What are you standing there for?" Xiangbao had a dark face, and did not dare to resist. He opened the bundle with many knots and said, "You can't take all the things. There are many things in it that are useless to you. I can take them to other cities to exchange for food. You just keep them there, and they will gather dust. As he said, the bundle was opened. The volume of this bundle was larger than the one Xiang Bao left for Chang Ning and the others last time. As the bundle was untied, the things inside rang and scattered all over the floor. Chang Ning looked up and saw that the most space was occupied by some canned foods. It seems that food is the real hard currency in this era and can be used to exchange for anything. However, there was almost no meat in this batch of canned food, but some canned fruits and pasta. Young Kai and Kian's tired look disappeared immediately, and her eyes lit up as she said to Chang Ning, "Brother's ironing. You are really amazing. You know he has hidden good stuff." Then she jumped over and grabbed a can of yellow peaches in a glass bottle, opened it and started eating. Xiang Bao looked so painful. Under the can was a bunch of miscellaneous things. Among them were mechanical watches, revolvers, submachine guns, police helmets and shields, small turbine parts, etc., which dazzled Chang Ning. When Chang Ning got the golden desert eagle before, he had doubts. People in this era generally have no science and technology, and this pistol is broken. Logically speaking, even a rag picker would not pick up this thing, which is neither edible nor usable. As a professional relic hunter, Xiang Bao obviously would not pick up some waste that cannot be used or exchanged with others. At that time, he guessed that there should be someone in this world who can repair guns. Today, seeing 3 more revolvers and 2 submachine guns in the back further confirmed his guess. He picked up a revolver and took a look at it in his hand. It was a bit like the police pistols in China in the 21st century. At that time, China had just developed police revolvers in strict accordance with the military product development procedures, and it had not been rolled out across the country. Chang Ning had seen it on the internet, and it looked very similar to the one in his hand. As we all know, revolvers have the longest lifespan and the lowest failure rate among all pistols. In fact, after nearly 300 years, if they were properly maintained, these guns might still be used normally. But unfortunately, they have been staying in a dark underground environment, and now they are rusty. Chang Ning threw the gun up, caught it, and said to Xiang Bao, "Where are you going to transport these things to sell?" Xiang Bao looked at Chang Ning, hesitated for a moment, and said, "Anyway, I won't tell you, you will know it later. There is a mechanical master in Guangcheng who is purchasing this kind of things, and these are basically transported to Guangcheng." Mechanical master in Guangcheng? He remembered that, when he first met Xiang Bao, the guy claimed to be from Guangcheng. This should be a lie. But he has plans to go to Guangcheng recently, so it should be true. The Desert Eagle was supposed to be shipped to Guangcheng to be sold last time. As for the mechanical master, Chang Ning had also heard about it from Zhen Yang. He was a master awakener of the Stargate mechanical department. His ability was to have an extraordinary sensitivity to all the machinery and mechanisms left in the old world, and he could easily repair purely mechanical creations. It just so happened that these guns and mechanical watches were such mechanical creations. So, he was already repairing guns. How many had been repaired? In other words, in this world that looked like a primitive society, there were actually forces that relied on hot weapons to fight. How many humans with other abilities were left in places that he had never been to? The remains of civilization in this world did not seem to be as bad as he thought. Chang Ning nodded, so that's how it is. Then he released a little starlight from his fingertips, covering the revolver with the power of the stars. The pistol instantly floated in the air and disassembled, and each part automatically refreshed, and was instantly assembled with a click. A brand new revolver fell into Chang Ning's hands. Xiang Bao was stunned. "You are also a mechanical master?" Chang Ning did not comment. "I want all these things." Xiang Bao's eyes widened. He thought these things were of no use to Chang Ning and Yunsheng, and they could not travel so far to Guangcheng to exchange with the mechanical master. These were not his in the end. Unexpectedly, Chang Ning was also a mechanical master. "It's over. It's all over." Xiang Bao showed a desperate look. Chang Ning continued to search the pile of things on the ground with his feet to see if there were any surprises underneath. Hey. Sure enough, there was a surprise. After he kicked away a police shield, he found a flying claw underneath. That's right, it's the kind of flying claw that ancient thieves used to climb walls and modern mountaineering teams use to climb mountains. This thing is very suitable for climbing places above the 21st floor of Yancheng. He smiled, very satisfied with today's harvest, and looked up at Xiang Bao and said, "Okay, I finished reading. Next, I want to ask you 2 questions. The first question is, you just said that you encountered a group of cave dwellers in the underground of Yancheng. What are those? The second question is, what method did you use to escape from us last time?" Chapter 59, Cavemen. Chang Ning sat leisurely on the chair and said to Xiang Bao, "I will ask you 2 questions now. If you answer them well, I will consider letting you leave alive." "What questions?" Xiang Bao didn't seem to be surprised at all. He kept looking at the pile of things with a face full of heartache. It took him 3 or 4 days and countless hardships and dangers to bring these things out from underground. He also spent a lot of brain power to scare away his 2 teammates. He could have taken half of them. If those guns and parts were useless to Chang Ning, he could have persuaded them to take them all. But now, robbers. They are all robbers. He roared in his heart. The first question is, when you just climbed up from underground, you talked about cave dwellers. Tell me some information about them. Cave dwellers? Xiang Bao sighed, but decided to cheer up and answer Chang Ning's question. Cave dwellers may exist everywhere in the world, but they are quite rare. We didn't expect to encounter such a large group under Yancheng. They should be the same species as us on the ground. But for some reason they have been living underground. They don't seem to be afraid of insane ghosts. Cave dwellers have good eyesight and can move freely in pitch black places. And I heard that they are particularly good at iron making and have many exquisite iron weapons, which are said to be brought from the cave dweller world. This time we met a group of cave dwellers underground, and because the encounter was very sudden, the 2 sides started fighting before they even communicated. Relying on my companion being an awakened person of the indomitable system, we retreated from the cave dwellers' place. How deep do the cave dwellers live underground in Yancheng? Chang Ning interrupted. It's quite deep down here. We walked and stopped all the way down, and it felt like we walked for more than a day before we reached the gathering place of these cave dwellers. More than a day. That shouldn't be the underground building of Yancheng, right? In the era when I lived, the deepest underground building was generally only 3 floors underground. Even if it took a long time to find a staircase going down, it wouldn't take a whole day to walk. Could it be that the underground building of Yancheng is particularly deep? Did humans before the doomsday like to dig more than humans in the 21st century? Chang Ning nodded and motioned Xiang Bao to continue. In short, because the living environment and habits are too different from ours, we people on the ground generally don't have a good communication with cave dwellers. I suggest that Yancheng should be sufficiently vigilant against the cave dwellers underground, and even take the initiative when necessary. Chang Ning did not comment, and took out the flying claw to play with it again. This flying claw is very delicate. Although there are serious signs of corrosion, it can be seen that it should have been of top craftsmanship before the doomsday, and it should be something left behind by a senior mountaineering enthusiast. While playing with it, he said, "Okay. Then the second question. When we were in the basement of the Shanghai Museum, you suddenly disappeared. How did you do it?" After saying that, he looked up and stared at Xiang Bao with sharp eyes. There is no way. This guy is very dishonest and cunning. Especially when it comes to this kind of problem involving himself. You must pay attention to distinguish his words. Otherwise, you can fool people without knowing that sentence. Sure enough, seeing Chang Ning's eyes, Xiang Bao was a little evasive. "Why don't you talk?" Chang Ning raised his voice, seeming a little impatient. "What do you mean by suddenly disappearing? It's obviously you 3 who didn't pay attention. The 2 of them were eating all the time, and you were rummaging through my bag all the time." Xiang Bao suddenly roared, looking very aggrieved. "You 3 didn't watch me, and you didn't let me run away. I didn't run away in the face of that situation, and I continued to stay and be beaten by you. You robbed everything, I admit it. But I can run away, right? You are too bullying." As Xiang Bao spoke, his eyes turned red, and he looked like he was about to cry. Chang Ning quickly turned his face away. It must be disgusting to see such a tall, strong, muscular, bearded man crying there. How can you be like this? At most, I tried to rob you, but you didn't just rob me, you also kidnapped me. Xiang Bao became more and more excited as he spoke, and spit began to fly. Okay. Chang Ning interrupted with a sigh. You are right. Okay. But now is not the time to argue about who is right. Now we have to see who has the bigger fist. Don't talk nonsense to me. Just answer my questions. I was sure at that time that if the door of that room was opened, it would make a loud noise. When you disappeared at that time, it was silent, and it was impossible to run out of the door quietly. Do you have other abilities? Or, do you have any treasures on you? Xiang Bao seemed even more angry. I just opened the door quietly at that time, but I opened the door a little softer and my footsteps were a little quieter. Admit it, you are too stupid. You didn't even know that the captives ran away. Don't make excuses, like I have treasures on me. Chang Ning shook his head. This person is quite stubborn. He thought about it, and thought that he would not get anything out of asking now. But doesn't Yanqing have a professional team? It would be better to let professionals handle professional matters. He said to Yun Qian, don't you have a maid in your room? Yun Qian swallowed a piece of yellow peach and smacked her lips. Yes. Then she shouted loudly, that little someone. Come in. The door was opened, and Yun Qian's thin little maid walked in, looking at the three people in the room timidly. Please, go find Huang Kan from the police station, and ask him to come here, and say that there is something important to discuss. The little maid nodded, turned around and walked out. After a while, there was another knock on the door. Come in. Chang Ning responded. The door opened, and Huang Kan walked, in wearing shiny leather boots. He was surprised to see a large pile of supplies in the room at first, and then turned around to see Xiang Bao standing in the corner of the house, with a bruised face and an unhappy look. Hey, isn't this Xiang Feng? Huang Kan obviously knew him. Chang Ning shook his head and sighed, and said to Xiang Bao, why do you give different names to everyone? Can you remember so many names like this? Xiang Bao rolled his eyes. I'm happy to do so. Yun Qian had just finished eating the can of yellow peaches at this time. When she heard Xiang Bao's words, she jumped up and slapped Xiang Bao on the head. Bang! Xiang Bao was knocked to the ground. He groaned for a long time before slowly standing up. He lowered his eyebrows and dared not speak again. Huang Kan looked confused and said to Chang Ning, what are you doing? Chang Ning smiled and said, it's like this. This person tried to rob me and Yun Qian when he was outside the city before. Huang Kan was even more confused. He turned his head and looked at Xiang Bao with a fool's eyes. You dare to rob a master level fighter? It turns out that he is a brainless muscle man. He has been wandering outside for a long time and doesn't know how he died. He actually dares to be a relic hunter. Then, we caught him back. I suspected he had some secrets, but he was very cunning and refused to tell. Does your police station have any methods to force a confession? Take him to see it? Chang Ning continued. Huang Kan raised the corner of his mouth. Speaking of forcing secrets, Yun Wu's intelligence bureau was originally the best at it. But now his intelligence bureau has basically been taken over by me, and I'm worried that I don't have anyone to show off to the new brothers. As he said that, he looked at Xiang Bao grimly. We will definitely treat him well. Chang Ning nodded and asked Huang Kan to take Xiang Bao away. You can't do this to me. I have explored the underground for Yanqing. I have fed canned food to Grandmaster Qian. After Xiang Bao was pushed out of the door, his screams could still be heard in the room. Qian, have you finished eating? Chang Ning turned to Yun Qian and said. Yun Qian nodded, but I can still continue eating. Don't eat yet. Let's go to the police station and see what Xiang Bao can say. Chapter 60. If there is no door, why not blow it up? Yun Qian nodded, but let me eat one more before going. Anyway, he has just been taken away and we shouldn't be able to get anything out of him now. Chang Ning sighed. Okay. After all, he is a master level fighter. Yun Qian happily found another can of rice balls, ate it cleanly, and then stood up and motioned Chang Ning to set off. The two had just opened the door and hadn't walked out when they saw Huang Kan coming back panting. Oh no. The man ran away. Huang Kan panted, looking annoyed. Run away. Yun Qian raised her eyebrows. I just took him to the police station and then went to find a few awakened people with strong confession extorting abilities to serve him. I didn't expect that when I came back, he disappeared. Disappeared again. This man's ability to escape is really strong. Chang Ning sighed. Where did you lock him up at the time? Chang Ning asked. It's locked up with Yun Wu and Yun Qi. It's the highest standard cage in the police station. Let's go and take a look. Huang Kai took Yun Kai and Qian and Chang Ning to a corner on the 20th floor, which is the office of the Yunsheng police station. As soon as they entered the door, there were two people sitting inside. They looked like awakened people, and they were also dejected. It's here. Huang Kai led the two people in, and the two awakened people also stood up and followed behind. After passing through several doors again, they came to a room with iron walls on all four sides. There were several cages in the room. The cage was very small, no more than 1 square meter, and the height was about 1 meter and 80. A person can stand inside very loosely, but it is difficult for the person inside to lie down. You can imagine how uncomfortable it is for people locked in such a cage. 2 of the cages held Yun Wu and Yun Qi. After not seeing them for a few days, the 2 of them looked much more haggard, listless, and half dead. The other cages were empty, and the door of one of them was opened. I had locked him in a cage at that time, but when I came back, I found that the cage door was open, and he was gone. Huang Kai pointed at the open cage door. Just locked in a cage. No one was assigned to guard it? Chang Ning frowned. They are both sitting outside the cell. One is a senior mountain mover, and the other is a senior architect. If there is any movement in the cell, they will be alerted, and the general situation can be controlled. Huang Kai pointed at the 2 people who followed in. Chang Ning turned and looked at the 2 awakened people on duty. The prisoner disappeared quietly, and you didn't notice anything unusual? The stronger guard smiled bitterly. I really didn't hear any sound inside, but when we were outside, we felt a gust of wind blowing, and then we saw a figure in a trance. When we went in to see, there was no one in the cage. A gust of wind blew. It should be the feeling of a gust of wind awakened running quickly from the side, right? Xiao Bao seemed to be a gust of wind awakened, not a mountain mover as he looked. Chang Ning was a little annoyed. The last time he met Xiao Bao in the basement of the Shanghai Museum, he tried to escape. As soon as he saw him, he ran very fast at the start, but was stopped by Chang Ning with an iron gate. At that time, Chang Ning didn't know the information of the Wind Awakener. Later, when he learned more, he also recalled that Xiao Bao might be a Wind Awakener. But after meeting Xiao Bao this time, he had been very cooperative and didn't try to escape, so he forgot about it. He didn't remind Huang Kai of Xiao Bao's awakening ability, so the police station detained Xiao Bao as an awakener of the mountain moving system, but who knew that he used his speed to escape? Chang Ning sighed. It's my fault for not reminding you. Then he walked forward and looked at the opened cage. The cage should be made in the old world. I don't know what type of alloy it is made of. It is extremely strong. According to the people of the Yunsheng police station, even a high-level mountain moving system can't pry open the metal bars on the cage. There is a built-in lock on the cage, and the key is in the hands of the police station. But there was a small piece of wire left in the keyhole of the opened cage. Could it be that this bear leopard can also open the lock? That's why he can open the cage quietly and escape with the speed of the wind system? He is really an all-round talent for escape. There is no way. With the speed of the bear leopard, who is a wind system awakener, he has already run far away. It is definitely impossible to find it back. Fortunately, all his supplies were left behind. Young Kai and Qian said beside him, "Brothers ironing, do you have any clues?" Chang Ning shook his head. It should be impossible to find it back. Unfortunately, I wanted to find the entrance to the 4th floor through him. Young Kai and Qian remembered the legend that Chang Ning said that the floors above the 4th floor were all canned food, and her eyes dimmed. Go back first. Don't let the bear leopard make a feint to the east and steal the pile of supplies back, Chang Ning said to her. Young Kai and Qian nodded, and the two hurried back to the room with Huang Kai's apology. The things are still there. It seems that the bear leopard doesn't dare to take the risk of coming to Young Kai and Qian's room again. In addition to the pile of things, there was one more person in the room. Zunlu was looking at the ceiling with a sad look on his face. Why are you back? Aren't you teaching that guy the iron carbon phase diagram? Chang Ning was a little surprised to see Zunlu. Don't mention it. I've never seen such a stupid person. I've taught him for so long, but he hasn't even memorized the periodic table of chemical element. Zunlu continued to be sad. I had to let him review it by himself. I can't teach him more in a short time. Chang Ning was speechless. Does Zunlu think that everyone in the world has the same abnormal learning ability as him? He shook his head and smiled. That's good. What are these? Did you rob anyone again? Zunlu pointed to a pile of supplies on the ground. Chang Ning told Zunlu about the encounter with Xiao Bao when they came out of the Yuncheng treasure house. Zunlu nodded. I understand. Chang Ning then handed the repaired revolver to Zunlu, along with a pack of 9mm bullets that had just been repaired. Although Zunlu's learning ability is very abnormal and his physical fitness is also good, but after all, he is not an awakener, and his means of dealing with the enemy are limited. His homemade shotgun was okay for dealing with enemies around him, but it probably wouldn't be able to reach enemies that were a little further away. Besides, Chang Ning felt that the shotgun was too crude, and he was really afraid that it would explode while in use. Taking advantage of the many weapons seized from Xiao Bao, he gave one to Zunlu. Zunlu took it, fiddled with it for a while, then removed the magazine of the revolver and filled it with bullets. He had seen Chang Ning practice shooting in Yaosun, so he knew how to use this thing. He nodded and said to Chang Ning, "Thank you." Chang Ning smiled and said, "What are you thanking me for?" Young Kai and Kian looked at him jealously. "Brothers ironing. Give me one too." "Go away. Children can't use such dangerous things. Besides, you're a grandmaster fighter, and this thing can't hurt you, so what do you need it for?" Chang Ning retorted without thinking. Young Kai and Kian pouted. "I don't care. I'm deeply hurt, and it will take 100 cans of food to heal." Chang Ning sighed. "It's a pity that Xiao Bao ran away. Otherwise, if we figure out how he escaped from the closed room, maybe we can get into the 4th floor. I'll give you 1,000 cans of food then." "Get into the 4th floor?" Zunlu looked at the ceiling and said, "Is it difficult to get in?" Chang Ning nodded. "There is no door." Kian Kian and I looked around, but couldn't find the entrance to the 4th floor. It seems that it will take a long time to explore the 3rd floor completely. Zunlu shook his head. "Why do we have to find the door? Can't we just blow it up?" He is now an expert in homemade methods to deal with everything, and has read almost all the documents on the computer that Chang Ning brought. Chang Ning remembered that there was a method for making homemade explosives. Blow it up. Chang Ning looked at Zunlu in amazement. Why is this kid so violent? Chapter 61. The reappearance of the evil spirit. Chang Ning was startled and shook his head quickly to dispel Zunlu's dangerous idea. "Are you kidding? The building of Yuncheng has not been repaired for 300 years. It is a dangerous building. Although most of the buildings in the old world have collapsed, Yuncheng still stands. But it is still an extremely old building. Such a building usually requires trembling in life. If it encounters natural disasters such as typhoons and earthquakes, it may die." Zunlu actually wanted to blow it up inside. Is it because it doesn't collapse fast enough? No. This building is too old. We can't take risks. Any explosion inside may trigger an unknown chain reaction. Chang Ning said to Zunlu seriously. "Okay." Zunlu nodded reluctantly. It seems that his homemade explosives are temporarily useless. Chang Ning saw that Zunlu was full of regrets for the failure to realize the art of explosion and decided to compensate him in other ways. "Let's go. I'll take you to shoot." Zunlu just got a pistol. Although he can use it, his accuracy must be very touching. Guns and weapons all need bullets to be fed. So he decided to go shooting with Zunlu and use his awakening ability to constantly refresh the batch of bullets. Let Zunlu quickly master the gun skills with the least resources. Zunlu nodded, and the three of them went to the rooftop on the 21st floor. Chang Ning found a place to set up a target for Zunlu to practice on. He and Yun Kai and Kian sat beside and watched boredly. Zunlu was very excited. He loved shooting a pistol very much, and the regret that the art of explosion could not be realized was also forgotten by him. The sound of gunshots on the rooftop on the 21st floor continued from day to night. Night fell. "Brothers Ialu, how long are you going to shoot?" I'm hungry, young Qian said boredly while eating her fingers. Shoot for a while longer. If you're hungry, go eat first. Zunlu didn't even look at her, staring at the bullseye and continued shooting. From the afternoon to the evening, his shooting skills have made great progress. At the beginning, almost all of them missed the target, but now almost all of them hit the target. Sometimes he can even hit the bullseye accurately. Chang Ning turned to young Qian and said, "You ate so much in the afternoon, why are you still hungry?" Young Qian pouted, "How can eating in the afternoon be the same as eating in the evening? Your lunch." Before she finished, Chang Ning interrupted her and said, "Okay, I know. What you said makes sense. Go eat." Young Qian snorted and stood up. Immediately, she suddenly became serious, quickly ran to Zunlu, and snatched his revolver. Zunlu was angry. "What are you doing?" Young Qian hissed and pointed to a huge metal pillar supporting the superstructure of Yanqing a few hundred meters away and said, "Look over there." Zunlu said blankly, "What is that?" Chang Ning also turned his head and looked over. Li Ling? On the huge metal pillar, it was the figure of the insane ghost Li Ling that Chang Ning had seen twice before. It was climbing on the protrusions on the pillar about 3 meters apart with its hands and feet. Because its height exceeded 3 meters, it climbed very easily, just like an ordinary human climbing a ladder. How could it appear there? Chang Ning lowered his voice and asked young Qian, "How should I know? It's not my pet." Young Qian retorted. Chang Ning had heard from people in Yanqing before that, although Li Ling often appeared nearby and had killed many Grandmaster level awakeners in Yanqing, it had never entered Yanqing or harmed ordinary people in Yanqing. How could it appear above Yanqing today? Is it going to enter Yanqing? Let's go. Hurry up and notify your sister. Chang Ning took the somewhat nervous young Qian and the bewildered Zunlu and quickly returned to the 21st floor through the stairwell and came to Yan Xianzu's room. It was just getting dark at this time and Yan Xianzu should not have rested yet. Sure enough, when the three of them arrived here, Yan Xianzu was talking to Huang Qian and Xiao. After Chang Ning told Yan Xianzu about their discovery on the rooftop, Yan Xianzu was not nervous at all. "It's okay. Li Ling often climbs up through the outer wall of the building. Many people have seen it, but it just passes by and will not enter Yanqing. Li Ling often climbs into the superstructure of Yanqing." This is not good news for Chang Ning. He knew before that there were dangers in the superstructure of Yanqing that could threaten the Grandmaster Awakeners, but he didn't know what they were. Today, it can be confirmed that Li Ling is definitely one of them. Why would this super insanity ghost who has killed 4 Grandmaster Awakeners in Yanqing and wandered around Yanqing for more than 100 years go there? Is there something in the superstructure of Yanqing that can attract it? It seems that, if I want to go up, I have to scout the enemy in advance. Going up when Li Ling is not up there can reduce some danger. Okay then. Chang Ning nodded, but he was still not at ease. In his plan, he must go to the superstructure of Yanqing. Seeing that Yan Xianzu and the others didn't care too much, I decided to go back and observe it myself. Lord Yan, it looks like you're getting better. Chang Ning added. The reason why he firmly supported Yan Xianzu during the civil strife in Yanqing before was because she had the awakening ability of the decomposer. She could actually decompose the broken and useless relics of the old world into usable raw materials, which is similar to Chang Ning's awakening ability of the restarter. Her ability plays an important role in restoring the productivity of the wasteland and the level of science and technology in this era. Now that she has gradually recovered from the poisoning and is getting better, can we start considering letting her work? Yan Xianzu smiled and nodded at him. Yes. Mezun's pharmacist ability is really amazing. I feel that I have almost recovered now. Congratulations. Chang Ning turned to look at Xiao again. Take me to visit your fleet tomorrow? In order to win over Xiao, Chang Ning promised her to build several large steel ships for her fleet, which was actually using his ability to refresh some broken ships. Xiao was pleasantly surprised and then gave Chang Ning a resentful look. I thought Chang Jiangzong had forgotten. Chang Ning laughed. How is that possible? He turned to Yan Xianzu and said, will City Lord Yan be with us tomorrow? Chang Ning planned to take Yan Xianzu with him to observe her awakening ability with his own eyes. Yan Xianzu nodded. No problem for me. Okay. That's settled then. Chang Ning remembered that in addition to Xiao, he had also promised Ko Jinglang to upgrade the equipment for his hunting team. So he turned to Zunlu and said, "Tomorrow, I will go to the riverside with Captain Jia, the Lord of Yunsheng, and the others. You go to find Captain Ko Jinglang, the captain of the hunting team, and help him make 10 shotguns. How about that?" Zunlu looked at the ceiling. 10? Are you kidding me? How can you make 10 shotguns in one day? Chang Ning was speechless. "I didn't ask you to make it in one day. Just make 10 for him in total, and then match them with the corresponding ammunition." Zunlu nodded. "That's no problem. Okay. Everyone, do what you should be busy with, and rest if you should rest. I'll leave for a while, and see you tomorrow." After Chang Ning finished speaking, he turned around and went out. He returned to the 21st floor rooftop, and observed the pillar where Liling had appeared just now again. After leaving for more than 10 minutes, Liling had disappeared. I don't know if he went up or down. Chang Ning took out a military telescope and searched carefully above and below the pillar, but still couldn't find Liling. It's a bit troublesome. Chang Ning was annoyed. He should have observed the direction of Liling's movement just now. It seems that I will have to come to the rooftop on the 21st floor often in the future to observe and record Liling's movements, and prepare myself for going to the upper buildings. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62 New Fleet. The next morning, Chang Ning got up and washed up, and had breakfast with Su Panpan's help. Although Chang Ning asked Su Panpan to go back before, he only asked her to go back to Yunxiansu when she rested at night. The cleaning of Chang Ning's room during the day, including the delivery of food, water and various daily necessities, was basically done by this little girl. "Chang Jiangzan, do you dislike me?" The little girl seemed to be a little dissatisfied that she could not stay in Chang Ning's room overnight. While serving Chang Ning breakfast, she muttered in a voice as thin as a mosquito. Chang Ning's hearing is very good now, and he can clearly hear the little girl's resentment, so he smiled at her. "How could it be? I'm just not used to being too close to unfamiliar people." Su Panpan's eyes reddened. "I will be 18 in 2 months, and I will not be able to make it in time for the next black moon. I will definitely not be able to awaken. I know I'm useless. Chang Jiangzan must dislike me for not being an awakener." Chang Ning suspected that she guessed the reason why he didn't touch her, and told him in advance that she would become an adult in 2 months. After all, awakened people are a minority, and ordinary people are the majority. Chang Ning said while eating. "Besides, ordinary people may not be worse than awakened people. In the future, many new things will appear, allowing ordinary people to do things that are more powerful than awakened people." "Chang Jiangzan, you are fooling me again." Su Panpan pouted. Chang Ning smiled at her. "How could it be? What I said is true. If you don't believe it, you will see in a few months." In the 21st century where Chang Ning lives, an excavator driver is not necessarily worse than an awakened person of the mountain mover system in carrying heavy objects, and the speed of a pilot is far faster than that of an awakened person of the wind system. As for the martial arts master Yun Qian, haha, you only need a car of Katasha to evaporate her hundreds of kilometers away. Although there were no awakened people in that era, the miracles created by humans were obviously much more than now. Chang Ning himself has the ability to restart, and Yun Xianzu has the ability to decompose. He believes that in a short period of time, the productivity of Yuncheng will be taken to a high level. It is almost certain that ordinary people will become stronger than awakened people through various scientific means. Just after finishing their meal, Yun Xianzu and Xiao went to Chang Ning's room together, followed by the sneaky Yun Qian. Did Chang Jiangzan finish his meal? Xiao smiled brightly. Chang Ning wiped his mouth. "I was just about to look for you, but you got here first. Shall we set off now?" Yun Xianzu and Xiao nodded together. "Let's go." The four of them, with the members of Xiao's fleet, had more than 100 people, and set off from Yuncheng in a mighty manner. They used the elevator 6 or 7 times alone, which made the men in charge of pulling the elevator exhausted. Maybe we can use the 2 generators in the warehouse to try the mechanical elevator? This idea popped up in Chang Ning's mind. However, the main purpose of today was the fleet, so Chang Ning didn't care much about the elevator. It took about an hour for the fleet to gather below and then set off to the north together. It must be said that when there are many people, there is a strange sense of security. Before Chang Ning traveled through the forest of doomsday, it was always a small team of 1 person or a few people at most. Today, in the 100-man team, everyone was talking and laughing, and there was no dull or tense atmosphere at all. For a team of this size, as long as they don't encounter a master level evil beast, they can basically go anywhere smoothly. Even if they are really unlucky and encounter a master level evil beast, there is still a master level fighter Yunkai and Qian in the team. In addition to Yunkai and Qian, the number of awakened people in the team has reached double digits. Yuncheng is worthy of being the center of the post-apocalyptic Shanghai city area. From the departure of this fleet, we can see that it has a strong foundation. Since the disappearance of the old city lord of Yuncheng, this is the first time that the fleet has been fully dispatched. Everyone is very motivated, and morale is high along the way. It took less than 2 hours to get from the Yuncheng base camp to the edge of the northern river. There are several outer bunkers of Yuncheng here, which are rebuilt from some underground buildings built before the doomsday and have not collapsed yet. When the Yuncheng fleet is dispatched for a long time and returns very late, the people in the fleet will spend the night in the bunker. There are also personnel on duty in the bunker all year round. Seeing the spectacular scene of the fleet's full deployment from afar, they all ran up from below and joined the team. Xiao explained to them the reason for the full deployment today. Several personnel on duty were also very excited. Everyone walked quickly to the riverside. Parked by the river are all the fleet's belongings for wooden ships. These ships were built by the predecessors of Yuncheng's architects and have been used until now. Before the old city lord disappeared, the fleet had 6 ships. But after Yun Yi disappeared, Xiao presided over the fleet's mission to go to sea and accidentally sank 2 ships. Now there are only 4. Each ship is not big, about 7 or 8 meters long. 2 of the 4 ships are only powered by sails, and the other 2 are equipped with dilapidated diesel engines. These 2 engines are difficult to use, often stalled, and have extremely low reliability. In the past, when the old city lord Yun Yi was in power, he used his personal captain awakening ability to merge with the fleet's ships mentally and easily control the entire fleet to sail. After Yun Yi disappeared, everyone could only rely on manpower to control the ships. The old sails and unreliable engines brought too much uncertainty to the fleet. Now the entire fleet not only cannot serve as the main source of food for Yuncheng as before, but even every time it goes out to sea, it is difficult to protect itself, and the crew members are very resistant. This is why everyone was so excited when they heard that the master craftsman Chang Ning was going to build a new iron ship for Yuncheng. Hundreds of people stood on the riverbank, 20 to 30 meters away from the shore. Chang Ning first observed the 4 wooden boats, then turned around and looked around. The bank of the river north of Shanghai has never been the shipping center of Shanghai. In the 21st century when Chang Ning lived, Shanghai port was located at the southern end of Shanghai, near Hangzhou Bay. There are all kinds of 10,000-ton giant ships all year round, with an amazing throughput. In the north of Shanghai, because the depth of the river is limited, and Changming Island is blocked there are generally no giant ships passing by. But there are still many small boats. Chang Ning saw that not far to the left was a fishing boat port in the old world before the end of the world. The place that was originally a harbor has now become a mudflat, and 3 fishery administration ships are stranded there crookedly. Before he crossed over, he had heard many legends about Chinese fishery administration ships. There were often 5,000-ton fishery administration ships enforcing the law in the open sea, confronting the neighboring countries such as the banana country that were blind. The news sounded very encouraging. However, these fishery administration ships were obviously operating on the river, and their displacement was estimated to be no more than 200 tons. However, it was enough for the current fleet of Yuncheng. Using these small tonnage, easy to operate ships, and training enough qualified sailors, we can continue to launch larger ships. Chang Ning led everyone to the side of the shoal, pointed to the 3 fishery administration ships and said, "There is not enough material on hand. How about I use these broken ships as raw materials to build new ships?" Yunshan Su and Jia Yao naturally had no objection. Chang Ning mobilized the power of the stars in his mind and enveloped one of the fishery administration ships. The hull was instantly decomposed into countless small parts, and then they were automatically refreshed one after another, and finally reassembled and landed on the mudflat. A brand new fishery administration ship appeared. Chang Ning closed his eyes and felt it. The star power used to restart this ship was not as much as the one used to rebuild the villa in Yao Town. It was probably because the size of the ship was smaller than that of the villa. After a ship was restarted, only about 1/10 of the star power was used. Chang Ning made a simple judgment in his mind. Maybe I can restart a 1,000-ton ship at most. Hundreds of fleet members cheered at this time. Jia Yao called on everyone to use the cable to tow the ship into the river. Several awakened people from the moving mountain system were the main towing force. Although there was no large lifting equipment, the ship was easily towed into the water by everyone. Go up and take a look. Jia Yao smiled at Chang Ning. Chapter 63 Diesel. Jia Yao had told Chang Ning before that their Yuncheng fleet had driven some iron ships a long time ago and had inherited the corresponding driving experience. It should refer to the fishery administration ship similar to the one Chang Ning had just refreshed. She really didn't lie. After the members of the fleet boarded the fishery administration ship, a dozen members who looked very smart automatically walked into the cab. After a short period of familiarization, they slowly started the ship. Although it was not fast and not stable, I believe that after a period of familiarization, these fleet members can become good at driving. Chang Ning, Yun Xiansu, Yun Qian and Jia Yao stayed on the boat for half an hour before going down. Because of this long journey, not much diesel was brought. After adding it to the fuel tank, it was enough for the ship to drive out 4 dozens of kilometers. Next, Yun Xiansu will use his decomposer ability to make a batch of diesel on the spot for these ships to sail. This is also the part that Chang Ning is most looking forward to today. In the underground fortress of the Yuncheng fleet, there are many waste plastics, waste rubber and other items collected by the fleet members nearby. After the old city lord of Yuncheng disappeared, these materials have never been moved. On the contrary, the people who stayed behind during this period have collected more materials. So when Chang Ning and his team arrived at the door of the bunker, there was already a small mountain of junk outside. The members of the fleet who stayed behind pushed over a dozen large iron barrels and placed them around the junk, looking at Yun Xiansu excitedly. Yun Xiansu nodded to everyone, then closed his eyes and held his breath and stretched out his fingertips. Starlight enveloped the pile of waste plastic and waste rubber. They slowly flew up into the air, and then a black hole seemed to appear in the middle. All the waste began to circle and was absorbed into the cave. Several members of the fleet were very experienced and quickly pushed an iron barrel to the bottom of the cave. After absorbing a lot of waste, the black hole began to spit out a stream of transparent and viscous liquid, which just fell into the iron barrel below. After 7 or 8 times, after replacing many iron barrels, the waste materials in the sky were basically consumed. Yun Xiansu's face turned pale and her body was shaky. Yun Qian hurried over to support her. "Sister, are you okay?" Yun Xiansu shook her head and smiled. "I'm fine. I just used too much force, and I'm a little exhausted." The black hole in the sky slowly disappeared, and a pile of dust was scattered at the original position of the hole. Chang Ning judged that the dust should be the waste left after extracting diesel. He knew that these plastics and artificial rubbers in the old world were made of petroleum as the main raw material. But he couldn't figure out why Yun Xiansu's decomposition ability did not decompose these things into the original petroleum state, but decompose them into the intermediate state of diesel. However, if it is decomposed into petroleum, it still needs to go through a series of processes to process usable fuels such as diesel and gasoline. Now it is much easier. So Chang Ning didn't continue to worry about this matter. Anyway, it's a good thing. Just now, Yun Xiansu decomposed more than 7 barrels of diesel and less than 8 barrels, and it reached its limit. It seems that he can't continue to use his ability in a short time. A barrel should be about 200 liters, so just now I decomposed about 1,500 liters of diesel, which weighs about a ton. And that pile of waste plastic and waste rubber seems to weigh about 10 tons. There must be some energy waste in the middle, but for now, it is completely acceptable. Xiao, who is a master level Stargate decomposer, and her ability controls about 10 tons of matter. And the matter controlled by my ability is definitely more than 100 tons. The ship with a displacement of 1 or 200 tons just now only consumed 1/10 of my power. Of course, with a full load displacement of 1 or 200 tons, the weight of the hull may be only a few dozen tons. But it is relatively easy for me to refresh these dozens of tons of matter. In this way, the total energy that can be mobilized by the star core in my body is indeed much more than that of Xiao, a master level Stargate. Everyone in Yancheng thinks that he is a master level craftsman, and it seems that at least in terms of level, there is nothing wrong. I should really be a master level awakener. While he was thinking, a group of nimble crew members had already collected the oil barrels. Xiao looked a little better. She said to Chang Ning, "Chang Jiangzang, my ability can only decompose this much material in a day. If you want to continue using the ability, you have to wait until tomorrow." Chang Ning nodded. "Then you should rest first." Xiao looked at Chang Ning and hesitated. "Chang Jiangzang, do you need to rest today? Or do you want to repair the other ships together?" Because she could clearly see that the ships repaired by Chang Ning, both in weight and volume, contained much more diesel than Xiao who decomposed. Chang Ning smiled. "It's okay. Since the oil is in place, how can the ship be absent?" As she said that, she walked to the muddy beach again, waved her fingers, and refreshed the remaining 3 ships one by one. Seeing the new ships appear one after another, the fleet members who stayed on the shore couldn't help but cheer. Xiao also shook her head secretly in her heart. She knew that Chang Ning was a master level awakener, so why did he ask such a question? Although her tone was respectful, it was a little questioning. She must not offend him. She walked to Chang Ning and said to him with a smile, "Great. Chang Jiangzang is really amazing. With these boats, I will treat you to grilled yellow croaker later in the evening. We haven't gone to the East Sea to fish for a long time. We will definitely have a big harvest today." After saying that, she looked at Chang Ning's face carefully. Chang Ning seemed to have no idea at all, and smiled at Xiao. "Then I'll wait to eat." She said to Xiao, "Lord Yan is tired, why don't we go back first? Let's celebrate when Captain Jia returns with a full load in the evening." Xiao naturally agreed. So Chang Ning and Xiao, with Yan Qian and several of Xiao's attendants, turned around and went back to Yancheng. On the way, Chang Ning began to consider the positioning of Yancheng and Xiao. He really wanted to unite the people who survived the doomsday around Shanghai. He had calculated before that there were probably less than 10,000 people left in the entire Shanghai area. These people were still scattered in the villages and towns around Shanghai, and there were only about 2,000 people in Yancheng. It was definitely impossible to carry out industrialization with such a small number of people. So, could we start from the aspects of food, clothing, housing and transportation, comprehensively improve the living standards of the people in the surrounding areas of Shanghai, and then naturally gather them, and let them participate in the subsequent industrialization process? As for clothing, there were not many ways to do it before the textile industry was developed. Even if we rely on cotton planting to develop the cotton textile industry first, it would take a long time, and the climate around Shanghai was actually not suitable for cotton planting. As for housing, the high-rise building in Yancheng could accommodate tens of thousands of people without being too crowded. But the building in Yancheng was a dangerous building for 300 years after all, and it was a bit too troublesome to go up and down the stairs. Could I inspect some small villages or large villa areas around before the end of the world, and rely on my own ability to refresh enough high quality housing? As for food, after the 4 fishing boats were given to the Yancheng fleet, Yancheng's fish acquisition level can at least be restored to the level when the old city lord was still there. But Chang Ning felt that the final solution to the food problem still had to start from agriculture. In fact, the area of Yancheng and the west bank of the Pujiang River is not suitable for planting. There are too many ruins of the old world, and not enough land. The area near Yaosan is relatively better, especially the east and south of Yaosan. Before the world-destroying disaster, there were large tracts of ready-made farmland, which was more convenient to cultivate. Finally, it's okay. Chang Ning thought about it, and felt that it was not realistic to concentrate all the population in the Hucheng area together. For example, agricultural areas, fishery areas and industrial areas are likely to be in different places. Therefore, it is more important to rebuild some roads on the ruins of Hucheng. For example, build a Uniao expressway from Yancheng to Yaosan. Chapter 64 Elevator. Chang Ning and Yan Xiansu walked a few hundred meters away and suddenly remembered that there were 2 dilapidated diesel engines on the original 4 wooden boats of the fleet. After 100 years of wind and rain, they are extremely difficult to use and have very poor reliability. But they can be refreshed and used as the power of the Yancheng elevator, or simply modified into a diesel engine version of the vehicle. Thinking of this, he sent several guards of Yan Xiansu back to dismantle the 2 engines and bring them back to Yancheng together. Looking at the backs of the guards leaving, Chang Ning couldn't help thinking that if there were reliable long-distance communication equipment, there would be no need to waste so much time and manpower running back and forth to send messages. Just tell the people of the fleet remotely to bring the 2 engines back to Yancheng when returning. Communication equipment is also one of the necessary elements of modern industrialized society. When Chang Ning came from the 21st century, he brought a pair of walkie-talkies. Although he didn't know who to contact with the walkie-talkie at the time, this thing is a must-have in the outdoor suit and doesn't take up much space, so Chang Ning stuffed them into a cardboard box and threw them over with other supplies. However, the walkie-talkies are still in the laboratory on the old site of Zhangjiang Science Park, and Chang Ning didn't bring them over. Even if he brought them, there would only be 2, 4 at most 2 groups of people to use, which is not enough for the population of Yancheng and Hucheng, which are based on thousands and tens of thousands. He still needs to make a batch himself. It would be best if he could find a walkie-talkie before the end of the world, so he can restore their functions by refreshing. However, walkie-talkies are still quite rare in the 21st century. Mobile phones are the necessary communication tools for everyone. Walkie-talkies are only popular in a few specific professions, or in the circle of outdoor enthusiasts. I don't know how popular walkie-talkies were before the apocalyptic disaster in the 24th century. However, Chang Ning has a hunch that there should be a batch of walkie-talkies in the material center on the 4th floor of Yancheng. The reliability of walkie-talkies during disaster relief is much better than that of mobile phones. The team returning to the city is smaller, and it is also faster than when they came. An hour and a half later, when the sun was just beginning to set, Chang Ning, Yan Xiansu and Yan Qian had already reached the large balcony on the 17th floor of Yancheng. On the balcony, a target was set up. Zunlu was holding a shotgun and teaching Kao Jinglang how to shoot. Oh my. That's awesome. That's awesome. Amid the exclamations of Kao Jinglang and the big men in his hunting team, they took turns shooting at the target with the shotgun given by Zunlu. How many have you made? Chang Ning stepped forward to greet Zunlu. Just 1. Let them practice shooting first. Zunlu was very calm. Chang Ning nodded. It was very fast to make a purely handmade shotgun in more than half a day. Chang Ning also agreed to let the people in the hunting team get used to target shooting first, so that when the subsequent shotguns were completed, they could be directly equipped. Chang Ning noticed that there was a figure squatting on the ground behind Zunlu, and he looked very sad from the back. Is this Huandong? He identified it and recognized that it was Huandong, the master architect who had been guarding the treasure house in the 3rd layer Cloud City. How did he get up here? Chang Ning walked behind Huandong and stretched his head to look. He saw Huandong took a piece of charcoal and wrote and drew on the ground. It looked like some kind of parts structure. What is this? Chang Ning couldn't help asking. Huandong was thinking hard and was startled when he heard Chang Ning's voice. Ah. Chang Jiangzang, you are back. This is a shotgun parts disassembly diagram. I'm looking at it. Shotgun parts disassembly diagram? Zunlu came over and said, I asked about his master architect ability. He can make everything. He understands the structural principles and knows the shape and properties of each part. So you decided to let him make a shotgun? Chang Ning was very surprised. Zunlu had always shown super abilities when he was studying and learning on his own, but now he knows how to use the abilities of others. Zunlu nodded. I asked a few other awakeners to go down and check the treasury and replaced him. Then I showed him a detailed disassembly diagram of each part of the homemade shotgun, as well as how to assemble it. I also built and assembled a shotgun in front of him with my own hands, and that's the one. As he said that, he pointed to the place where Xiao Jinglang and the others were shooting. But, Zunlu continued to show a puzzled expression. There seems to be something wrong with this person's brain. Hearing Zunlu's words, Huandang's face became more bitter, and he frowned, and said to Zunlu, my great inventor Master Zunlu, I have tried very hard. Who can remember so many things in such a short time? Although this shotgun does not look complicated, each part requires precise dimensions. It is impossible to master it completely in half a day. Zunlu shook his head and said, but I remembered it completely in 15 minutes. It has been 4 or 5 hours for you. I now suspect that you have intellectual defects. Seeing that Huandang looked like he was about to cry, Chang Ning interrupted and said, how about this, Huandang? If you think it is not realistic to disassemble all the parts and remember them at once, why not try to remember them one by one? In this way, every time you master a part, you can make a batch of parts of the same type. Finally, after all the parts are manufactured, you can assemble them together, isn't it? Huandang's eyes lit up. This is really a good idea, worthy of being the master of craftsmanship. Zunlu frowned. This is the only way. There is no other way. It seems that he is still quite dissatisfied with Huandang. It is not known whether Huandang has mastered the periodic table and the iron carbon phase diagram correctly. If he has basic knowledge of chemistry and industrial casting, he can play a big role in the next construction. At this time, Xiao Jinglang finished shooting around and noticed Chang Ning and the others. He walked over quickly, greeted Chang Ning, Yan Qian Su, and Yan Qian Qian, and then smiled at Chang Ning. Chang Jiangzang. This shotgun seems to be more suitable for hunting, especially good at dealing with large prey that requires close combat. With it, every ordinary team member can play the role of a primary awakener. Chang Ning also smiled at him. As long as Captain Xiao is satisfied, we will produce more shotguns to equip your hunting team. Xiao Jinglang laughed. Then our hunting team's daily hunting quota will increase a lot. At this time, 2 dilapidated diesel engines also came up with the next elevator. Chang Ning said hello to Xiao Jinglang and Zunlu, and walked to the diesel engine. Starlight was waving from his fingertips, directly covering the 2 engines at the same time. After a short period of air suspension, 2 brand new diesel engines landed on the edge of the balcony on the 17th floor. Huandang watched with envy, thinking to himself, when can I be like Shan Jiangzang, with such vast knowledge, that I can easily make such a complex thing as a diesel engine. Chang Ning didn't know what he was thinking. He turned around and ordered Yan Qianzu's guards to get some diesel, and then studied how to use this engine to pull the elevator. Simply fix the engine on the ground, and then tie the rope pulled by manpower to a wooden shaft. When the diesel engine starts, it drives the wooden shaft to rotate, and pulls the rope of the elevator. When the elevator reaches the top, arrange a fixed and reliable top frame, to prevent it from rising further. Then turn off the engine, to complete a lifting process. The whole process only requires one person, to stare at the engine, and make a switch action. The same is true for the descent process, but the landing speed cannot be too fast, and a brake action needs to be made when it is close to the ground. Chang Ning stretched out his hand to call Zunlu over and asked him to study how to limit the lifting speed and force. As a result, Zunlu easily solved the problem with a few small pulleys. Chang Ning looked at the diesel engine driven elevator. This thing should not be called an elevator because it is not powered by electricity. But it is also very close to the principle of the elevator used by Chang Ning in the 21st century. Thinking of the elevator, Chang Ning had a flash of inspiration. Oh, there are 2 generators in the treasure house. This thing should be more useful than a diesel engine. Chapter 65 Upward. A week later, young Chen as a whole has undergone tremendous changes. This change is reflected in all aspects. First of all in life. Yan Qianzu's internal affairs bureau sends people every day to collect various plastics and waste rubber relics from the old world for Yunchai and Su to decompose and make necessary energy materials such as diesel. Chang Ning also followed these scrap collecting laborers. He issued the waste recycling standards like in Yaosun, but the difference is that this time, if there are people who provide qualified scraps, Chang Ning will no longer give him food. After all, this is a daily job of the Yuncheng Internal Affairs Bureau. Relying on these diligent little bees, Chang Ning can reap many surprises every day. Compared with the time when he collected scraps in Yaosun, he obtained a lot more valuable materials. After all, the people in Yuncheng are professional. On the third day of Chang Ning's stay in Yuncheng, the entire Yuncheng from the 17th floor to the 21st floor was basically powered on. With the help of Zunlu, referring to the previous circuit layout of Yuncheng buildings, they arranged simple city wires. Driven by 2 diesel generators, the night lighting base of Yuncheng no longer consumes kerosene and whale oil. The worn-out light bulbs brought back by the Internal Affairs Bureau have become new and bright light sources, appearing in every corner of Yuncheng. In addition to lighting facilities, Chang Ning also collected several freezers. These freezers were placed in the fish processing plant on the 17th floor. Originally, after the fleet caught a boatload of fish, it was transported to the fish processing plant on the 17th floor, which required hundreds of people to process the fish at the same time. They picked out the best tasting fish for fresh cooking and supplied food for the next few days. The fish with worst taste will be made into dried fish and used as reserve food for the Black Moon and other times when food is temporarily unavailable. The inedible parts such as fish bones and internal organs will be mixed with the feces, hay, sawdust, etc. of wild herbivores to become the culture medium for mushroom cultivation, another pillar industry on the 17th floor. This is why Chang Ning found the smell unbearable when he first came to the 17th floor of Yuncheng. The fishy smell of fish and the smell of animal feces mixed together to become the main tone of the smell on this floor. It would be strange if it smelled good. After Chang Ning provided the freezer to the fish processing plant, the manpower required by the processing plant was significantly reduced. The fish that originally required hundreds of people to work overtime to process became less urgent because of the preservation function of the freezer. In the previous rhythm of Yuncheng, there would be a fish harvest about every 5 days. The day of transportation to Yuncheng was the busiest time for the fish processing plant, and everyone had to work for more than 20 hours without stopping. In the other 4 days, these people were basically idle. Some of them would work part-time in the mushroom plantation to participate in the mixed culture medium work, and most of them would simply be idle for 4 days. Such a distribution of manpower is very unreasonable. With the freezer, the fish processing plant only needs about 50 workers, who can work steadily for 8 hours a day. It not only reduces the burden on workers, but also saves labor costs. The hunting team, the elevator duty team, the intelligence bureau, etc., which also save labor costs, have nearly a quarter of the labor force in the entire Yuncheng free. The elevator, which originally had 15 strong men on duty in turn, now only needs 3 people to be on duty in different time periods and start the switch. Chang Ning even wanted to put the switch directly in the elevator so that there would be no need for a person on duty. However, after considering the understanding and knowledge level of most people in this era, he finally decided to keep the duty group. But this elevator duty group is the most leisurely job, and only a few young girls with little labor ability can do it. It is equivalent to the liberation of all the original big men. The Intelligence Bureau originally had many patrol members who had to patrol at fixed points a few kilometers around Yuncheng every day to ensure the safety of Yuncheng and warn the enemy in advance. Chang Ning solved this problem with several cameras installed on the 17th floor. The patrol members were greatly reduced, and only a few more duty officers in the monitoring room were added. They stared at a few monitors every day, and they could do a better warning than the previous patrol members. It's just that the pixels of those cameras are not particularly good. Chang Ning always feels that the picture quality is like that unearthed in the Jurassic period, which makes him despise the camera production level in the 24th century. Projected on the monitor, at most it is the 720p effect that Chang Ning has seen in the 21st century. But it is enough for early warning. The duty personnel in the monitoring room can clearly see people and other creatures moving towards Yancheng 2 kilometers away. In short, in terms of material life, the entire Yancheng is slowly transitioning to a modern society, and in terms of production, things that improve productivity are constantly being invested in. Chang Ning even felt that, if he was given another half a year, relying on the level of rag-picking in Yanshansu's Internal Affairs Bureau, he could rely on himself and Sun Lu to bring the entire Yancheng to a living standard close to that of the 20th century when other people were illiterate. Another change is the power structure of Yancheng. Since the Eradication of Traitors Conference was held, and Yun Wu and Yun Qi were arrested, Yun Xiansu, Huang Qian, Jia Yao, Ko Jinglang and other Yancheng high-level officials have been constantly moving. Originally, most of the awakened people in Yun Wu's Intelligence Bureau and Yun Qi's Judicial Bureau were not firm element, and did not have absolute loyalty to their superiors. Therefore, except for a few people such as Aunt Feng and Sister Wen who escaped, the people who stayed behind hardly fought for Yun Wu and Yun Qi, and all tacitly accepted Yun Xiansu's authority as the city lord. After a period of wooing and suppression, the Intelligence Bureau and the Judicial Bureau were both abolished. The original personnel of the Intelligence Bureau were divided into two parts, joining Yun Xiansu's Internal Affairs Bureau and Huang Qian's Police Bureau respectively. Most of these people are still engaged in the previous intelligence work, but the subordinate and reporting relationship has been completely disrupted. The Judicial Bureau was merged into Yun Xiansu's Internal Affairs Bureau as a whole. Yun Xiansu established a Yancheng Resident Internal Conflict Adjustment Committee, based on the original structure of the Judicial Bureau. Of course, this was also based on Chang Ning's opinion. After this adjustment, Yun Xiansu and Huang Qian became the ultimate beneficiaries of the internal struggle in Yancheng and firmly controlled all the rights in Yancheng. The losers, Yun Wu and Yun Qi, disappeared from the cell of the police station. Chang Ning didn't know what their final destination was, but looking at the calm appearance of Yun Xiansu and Huang Qian, they should have been dealt with cleanly. Chang Ning didn't care much about their power struggle, but only focused on construction and improving his own abilities. Go to bed early and get up early, exercise diligently, and your physical fitness is still slowly growing. Now he only needs to sleep about 4 hours a day to ensure a strong energy for the day. On this day, Chang Ning got up at around 4 in the morning and, as usual, exercised on the 21st century rooftop on the 21st floor. The stars were bright, and although the cloud city below had already used electric lights, at 4 in the morning, there was still almost no light pollution. Chang Ning habitually looked towards the giant pillar, where Li Ling had appeared before, and suddenly his eyes fixed. Li Ling appeared there again. This time Chang Ning was not in a hurry. He hid behind the wall at the exit of the stairs and secretly observed this super crazy ghost. Li Ling's flexible limbs climbed on the pillar very quickly. It's going down. Chang Ning was delighted. Has the opportunity to enter the superstructure of Cloud City finally come? Chapter 66. Flying Claws explore the clouds. Take advantage of now. Chang Ning knew that the Lost Heart ghosts usually appeared at night, and they seemed to be very afraid of sunlight. Although Li Ling was a super Lost Heart ghost that could blow up a Grandmaster level awakener, Chang Ning had seen it several times at night. When it was almost dawn, it would leave and hide. Now Li Ling had come down from the upper structure of Yancheng, and the sky would soon be bright. In other words, Li Ling should not go up again during the whole day today. There are many dangerous places in the upper structure of Yancheng, one of which is Li Ling. Li Ling's absence today means that the danger is reduced by 1. It is the best time to go up and explore. Because Chang Ning has only known about the danger of Li Ling so far, he has to go up and see the others. Chang Ning had prepared a strong rope of more than 300 meters. This rope was connected by multiple different ropes, most of which were made of chemicals that Chang Ning could not name. The common point is that they are all very strong and light enough. He connected these ropes together and tied a knot at each connection. The total weight of the bundle of ropes did not exceed 10 kilograms, and the volume was not large, so it could be stuffed directly into Chang Ning's outdoor backpack. He was behind the wall at the entrance of the stairs, staring at Li Ling's figure going down, and gradually disappeared below the platform on the 21st floor of Yancheng. Then he waited for a while, and after making sure that the sun was out, he went back to take out the backpack containing ropes, flying claws and other outdoor necessities. When he went to find Yun Kian Kian, he was told by Yun Kian Kian's maid that she went out with the hunting team yesterday and did not come back all night. And he didn't know if she would come back today. The opportunity was not to be missed, and Chang Ning decided to go up and take a look himself. He thought that, as long as he was careful enough, he should be able to control the danger within an acceptable range. The plan was to use the flying claws to climb up to the upper structure of Yuncheng step by step along one of the 4 pillars. Then immediately fix the rope to the edge of the superstructure. Tie a rappelling knot. In this way, the rope became Chang Ning's safety guarantee. Once he encountered troubles that he couldn't handle on the superstructure, he could jump down directly and quickly return to the 21st floor rooftop through the rappelling rope. As long as you are not greedy and wander around with the mentality of feeling the situation and gaining knowledge, you will complete today's task. In terms of equipment, he did not bring the Barrett sniper rifle, but equipped the Desert Eagle as a long-range weapon, and the melon knife he brought from the 21st century for close combat. The iron smelting process of this melon knife is stronger than all the close combat weapons in this era. The inner layer of his body is covered with black and gold clothes, which is a super armor that even bullets cannot penetrate. As a preliminary exploration mission, Chang Ning thinks this is enough. He put on his outdoor backpack and walked out of the staircase passage of the 21st floor rooftop again. Looking around, the sun had just risen from the eastern horizon not long ago, and there was still a thin layer of mist between heaven and earth. 4 towering steel pillars still stand at the 4 corners of Yuncheng. The southwest pillar is closest to him, and it is also the one that Chang Ning explored at close range last time. Let's choose it. Chang Ning sorted out his backpack and walked quickly along the route of the last exploration of the pillar. After climbing the 21st floor of the wall and picking up Barrett's observation tower, Chang Ning soon arrived at the bottom of the giant pillar. Traveling during the day is faster than traveling at night last time, and Chang Ning has walked this route once. Standing under the steel giant pillar, Chang Ning took a deep breath. He took out the flying claw, threw it to the side and upward, and it got stuck on a step about 10 meters above. The steps on this giant pillar are about 3 meters apart. Monsters like Liling who are more than 3 meters tall can climb up one step at a time with their hands and feet, but Chang Ning can't. He must hold the rope of the flying claw, step on the metal wall, and use his own arm strength to climb up. Fortunately, Chang Ning has always insisted on exercising, and after coming to this era, his body is slowly getting stronger. If he lived in the 21st century, Chang Ning was sure that he would not be able to climb to the superstructure more than 100 meters away. The angle at which he threw the flying claw was not straight up, because the pillar had an inward tilt. If the grappling hook is thrown directly upward, the rope will fall vertically and there will be a distance between it and the pillar itself, which will make Chang Ning's legs completely useless. The advantage of throwing it diagonally upward is that the whole rope will fit more closely with the inclined pillar. After Chang Ning steps on the pillar, he can save some effort on his arms. Calming his mind, Chang Ning began to climb up. He had seen some mountaineering videos in the 21st century, and climbers also climbed, like he was doing, when dealing with almost vertical cliffs. The difference is that vertical cliffs are often only a dozen meters, or at most a few dozen meters away. And this time Chang Ning had to climb more than 100 meters. Having just rested for a night, Chang Ning still had plenty of physical strength. It took him less than a minute to climb to the step where the grappling hook was hooked, and he stood up diagonally against the pillar and retracted the grappling hook. The raised steps on the pillars were only about 20 centimeters wide every 3 meters or so, and they were tilted inwards. Chang Ning was a little shaky standing on them. He tried not to look down, but raised his head and quickly threw the claw upwards. He continued to throw a slightly outward tilt, and the claw hooked the raised step on the 4th floor again. After pulling the rope with his hand to make sure it was secure, Chang Ning continued to climb up. After throwing the claw 3 or 4 times, Chang Ning had walked more than 30 meters upwards and circled the pillar half a circle. Now he was on the outside of Yuncheng. Standing here, the tilt angle of the pillar was an obtuse angle, and he could rest on the pillar without worry. When he continued to climb up, the claw did not tilt, but was thrown straight up. On the outside of the pillar, climbing at an obtuse angle was much easier than climbing at an acute angle on the inside. Chang Ning's legs and hands could use almost the same strength to climb up together. About an hour and a half later, Chang Ning finally climbed to the raised step closest to the top building. He leaned against the pillar and rested for half an hour before throwing the flying claw again and hooking the bottom plate of the top building of Cloud City. Climbing up in one go, Chang Ning saw a street. On one side of the street were shops in the old world before the end of the world, and on the other side was a long railing to prevent pedestrians on the street from accidentally falling. He quickly took out the rope from his bag, quickly found the end of the rope, and tied a rappelling knot. After tying the knot, he threw one end of the rope down again, stretched his head to see that it had landed on the roof of the 21st floor, and there was still room. He breathed a long sigh of relief, and tied the other end around his waist. In this way, even if there is danger later, he can rush to the street, climb over the railing, and jump directly down, and use the rappelling rope to quickly return to the 21st floor. After checking that there was no problem with the rope, Chang Ning looked up again and carefully looked at the upper buildings of Cloud City. The streets around the bottom of the building should be of this kind. The style here looks a little familiar, very similar to a game that Chang Ning played in the 21st century, a scene in Cyberpunk 2077. He remembered that in that game, there was also a very high street, which was lined with food stalls and there were shops on the roadside. Looking up, the entire superstructure was divided into two buildings, and there was a narrow gap between the two buildings. I don't know what's in that gap. Chang Ning decided to walk over there first. Chang Ning walked forward cautiously along the small street in the clouds. There was only the sound of the whistling wind and the dead silence. In the 300 years since the end of the world, except for the crazy ghosts, there should be no living people coming up here, right? This kind of uninhabited human architectural remains gives people a completely different feeling from the wild ruins outside. After walking 50 or 60 meters, Chang Ning saw that the stall logo on the opposite street looked familiar. Is that the security booth in the old world? His intuition told him that there should be something he wanted to find in it. Chapter 67 Surveillance from 300 years ago. Amid the howling wind, Chang Ning walked slowly on the deserted high-altitude street. Most of the roadside shop signs were dilapidated, and the window glass was almost completely broken. Most of the shop shelves were tilted, and there were not many goods inside. It seemed that they had suffered a relatively large impact in the days when the doomsday came. The door on Chang Ning's left-hand side was painted with the sign of a security booth, and Chang Ning decided to go in and explore. He first lowered his head to check the rope tied to his body, then raised his head and looked at the building carefully. This is one of the shops in the ground floor of the upper structure of Yuncheng, which is taller than the shops next to it. There are two small wind turbines above the building, which slowly rotate in the strong wind. This means that Chang Ning can easily restore the power supply inside. It is not known whether this security booth is guarded by security guards like in the 21st century, or there are also police on duty inside. If it is the latter, it is possible to find weapons inside. Chang Ning felt that judging from the area occupied by the upper structure of Yuncheng and the building height, it should be estimated that hundreds of thousands of people could live here before the doomsday. Given the population size, there is a high probability that there are permanent police officers stationed at the station. He slowly walked to the door and looked inside. Inside was a hall structure with a row of counters that looked like they were used for reception. Behind the counters, there was a door on each side, which might lead to the office area or equipment area. The cabinets, chairs and other furniture in the hall were already in a state of disrepair, and the ground was also covered with a thick layer of soil. Moss and weeds grew tenaciously on the floor of the hall. Chang Ning walked in slowly, took out his Desert Eagle, and was on guard. There was nothing unusual in the hall. He briefly looked through the drawers behind the reception counter. They were mostly some rotten documents, some office supplies and a few keys that didn't know which door to open. He took out a strong flashlight in advance and came to the door behind the counter on the left side of the hall. With a gentle push, the door opened and was not locked. Chang Ning walked in and found that it was an office with about 7 or 8 workstations. It was also messy. Many tables were overturned. It looked like it had experienced some chaos a long time ago. Another possibility is that this place has been searched once a long time ago. There is a window on the wall of the house, and the whole room is not dark. Chang Ning turned off the flashlight and walked in to explore. After searching several desks, he did not find any clues, nor any valuable things. There was not even a computer in this office. Chang Ning raised his head and looked at the innermost part of the office, where there was another door. He took out the flashlight again, walked slowly to the door, and turned the door knob. The door opened. There were no windows in the inner room, and the light was relatively dim. Chang Ning used the flashlight to look around, and felt that this should be a monitoring room before the end of the world. There are 10 display devices in the room, neatly hung on a wall, and 2 or 3 of them have large cracks on the screen. Opposite are several office seats, equipped with a control console. If this is a monitoring room before the end of the world, can we see some images of the end of the world? Chang Ning was a little excited. He followed the circuits of the display device and the control device, and found a power supply. As expected, one of the external interfaces of this power supply was on the wind power generation equipment above. Chang Ning calmed down and mobilized the power of the stars in his mind. He first repaired the power supply equipment. Then he went out again, climbed to the roof, and repaired 2 small wind turbines. Finally, he returned to the monitoring room, checked the integrity of the power supply and circuit, and clicked the start button on the console. No response. Is it broken? Come to think of it, the reason why the computers in the laboratory and the 3rd floor warehouse can still be used is because they are stored in a good environment. The temperature and humidity are properly controlled, and there is not too much dust and external interference. The computer in this monitoring room is not so lucky. It has good connectivity with the outside world, and wind and rain can come in through the broken windows of the outer office. It is a ghost that it can be preserved for 300 years in this environment. He had no choice but to mobilize his awakening power again and cover the entire monitoring equipment. At the same time, he prayed in his heart that his refresh ability would not format the information stored in it. After the starlight dissipated, the monitoring equipment was repaired. Turn it on again, and it can start up. A minute later, the startup was completed, and Chang Ning began to check the storage files inside. There are still. Chang Ning breathed a sigh of relief and opened the video folder. The video recorded in it was from June 21st, 2331 to July 21st, 2331. It looked similar to the general monitoring equipment of Chang Ning's era, and it could automatically save videos for about a month. He first clicked on the file of June 21st, and 10 monitors immediately showed the camera images of 10 locations. 2 were located in the front hall, and 8 were on the street outside. At 8 o'clock in the morning on June 21st, the street was already crowded. Chang Ning saw people constantly carrying a device like a parasol, flipping over the railing, and then slowly falling down. Is this a means of transportation in the 24th century? There were actually personal aircraft at that time. Chang Ning was a little surprised. He had the impression that, because of the Great Schism, human technology had been stagnant. But this thing is a bit too sci-fi, and it looks very popular. However, after watching for a long time, Chang Ning did not find anyone flying up from below. He gradually realized this thing can only assist in slowing down the landing and cannot carry people up. If that's the case, then the technology of the 21st century does have some technology that can do this. The people on the screen seem to be more energetic. It seems that after the Great Split, human society is indeed developing in a positive direction as a whole. At this time, people's mental state has obviously surpassed that of people in the 21st century. The person who jumped down with the sun umbrella on his back should be commuting to work. In addition, there are some children and elderly people walking slowly on the street, and there are also some people shopping. In short, except for the sci-fi sun umbrella, the picture in the surveillance is not much different from the more prosperous streets in the 21st century. He watched for a while, and then opened the video of July 20th. According to the records of Xiao, the warehouse manager on the 3rd floor, the exact date of the disaster was July 20th. The video of this day started at midnight, and he dragged the progress backwards until after sunrise. From the picture, People were still working and living normally that morning, which was not much different from the situation on June 21st. It's just that due to the weather, everyone's clothes were a little cooler. Continuing to drag backwards, at 12:21, there was an obvious commotion among the people in the surveillance. Almost everyone who was walking stopped, looked up at the sky, and pointed in one direction. Chang Ning found the screen corresponding to the camera facing that direction. Half of the screen was a high-altitude street, and the other half was a blue sky. Above the sky, there were two suns side by side. Their brightness was so similar that Chang Ning could not tell which was the normal sun and which was the newly appeared abnormality. Chang Ning swallowed and dragged the progress bar forward a little. He wanted to see with his own eyes what the other sun would look like when it appeared. Chapter 68 Records of Catastrophes. The screen moves forward to 12:09. At this time, there is still only one sun in the sky. Everything seems peaceful and quiet. In the video, the roadside restaurants and food stalls are busy. Many people are queuing at a food stall. It should be lunchtime. Occasionally, someone jumps down with a sun umbrella on his back. Most people slow down and enjoy the free time at noon. The sun hangs in the sky, giving its light and heat to the earth as it has every day for more than 4 billion years. Suddenly, a small light spot appears in the blue sky not far from the sun. Chang Ning glanced at the time, 12:10. The small light spot quickly expanded and reached the brightness of the sun in just 10 minutes. Two suns began to appear in the sky. When the small light spot just appeared, someone noticed it. Chang Ning saw a child of 14 or 15 years old on the screen, looking at the direction of the light spot in confusion, as if thinking about something. At around 12:15, most people had noticed the light spot, except for a few pedestrians in a hurry and the busy food store owner. Everyone began to talk about the light spot. Several passers-by took out their phones to take pictures of that direction and lowered their heads to operate it, as if they were posting on social media. At 12:20, the light spot was almost as bright as the sun. Many people were still looking in that direction with their hands on the awning, and some people were talking on the phone, as if sharing this discovery with friends and family. At 12:25, the brightness of the newly appeared sun had exceeded that of the original sun. Chang Ning found that many people holding mobile phones had frustrated facial expressions. They were either holding their phones and turning around, or poking their phone screens hard, or checking something on their phones over and over again. At this point in time, were many people's phones broken? Or was the signal in this area cut off? Chang Ning continued to watch with speculation. Around 12:30, some messy snowflakes began to appear on the video, and the picture began to be obviously distorted. Was this electronic device affected by the sun? Chang Ning was almost certain that those who had just made strange movements with their phones were because their phones broke around 12:25. The images on the screens continued to deteriorate. After about 10 minutes, all the images on the 10 monitors turned into a mess of snowflakes, and no useful information could be seen. The video actually failed at the critical moment. We only saw the scene when the disaster just happened. What about the aftermath? What about people's reactions after the truth of the disaster gradually emerged? None of them. This is too much. He pulled the video back to 2400 hours on the 20th, and it was all snowy. Unwilling to give up, he continued to open the video on the 21st, and the screen was still full of snow. He dragged the video of that day again, and checked it back a little bit. At about 2000 hours, some blurred images began to appear on the video. Although the specific content could not be seen clearly, it was not completely snowy at all. He was happy in his heart. Could it be that after this time, the electronic equipment gradually recovered? He continued to drag it back carefully until about 2350, and finally he could see the general picture clearly. At this time, the street was already a bit messy, no longer as clean and tidy as before. There were few pedestrians on the road. The few people who were there found a few bottles of wine from the roadside shops and sat down to drink them. It seemed that their mental state had collapsed. The door of the shop was not closed, but the clerk was gone. At this time, most ordinary people should know that a world-destroying disaster had occurred. The picture moved for more than 10 minutes, and suddenly a huge crowd appeared at the end of the street, heading towards this side from a distance. Is this a parade or an organization for survival? Not long after the crowd appeared, the picture flashed, and all the screens went black. The video was over. The files for the next few days were not stored. It should be, because the staff on duty in the monitoring room here were also permanently on vacation after the disaster. Chang Ning not only slapped the table hard, but still failed to collect the key information. He sat on the ground, thinking and digesting the previous pictures, trying to review whether there was any information he had missed. The whole room became quiet, with only the wind whistling outside the window. Is it a person? What? A staccato hoarse voice suddenly came from outside. Chang Ning, who was deep in thought, was startled. Hasn't no one been to the upper structure of Yancheng for 300 years? Why did the voice suddenly come? Was he hallucinating? He calmed his mind, tried not to make any sound, and listened carefully with his ears. Is it a person? The voice floated over again, and it seemed to be mixed in the sound of the wind outside, making it impossible to identify the direction. Chang Ning listened carefully this time, and there was indeed someone talking. But the voice was hoarse and the tone was weird, not like the sound a normal person could make. He remembered some horror movies he had watched in the 21st century. Only ghosts or monsters could make such sounds. Could it be a crazy ghost? But can't crazy ghosts talk? If it's a person, come here. Ah. The voice floated into the room again. Chang Ning's hair stood on end. The words were extremely harsh, like the sound of metal friction, and it didn't sound like the sound of human vocal cords. What the hell is this thing? Chang Ning cheered up and slowly sat up from the ground. With a machete in his left hand and a desert eagle in his right hand, he slowly retreated towards the door. Whatever it was, Chang Ning did not intend to confront it. He planned to rush out and use the rappelling rope to jump down to the 21st floor after making sure that the outer room was safe. After returning, he would see if he could find out something from others and solve the mystery of this sound. He slowly moved towards the exit step by step, trying not to make any sound. Fuck, is there anyone there? After successfully walking out of the monitoring room and coming to the outer office, the sound came again, and this time it was louder. Could it be that the distance was closer? Chang Ning did not dare to be careless. He was tense and slowly moved to the hall. Come here, for me. The voice almost roared hoarsely. This time Chang Ning identified the direction. It came from the door on the right behind the counter in the hall. Could that thing be hidden over there? Fortunately, he had just chosen the door on the left. Chang Ning was secretly glad in his heart. We were about to reach the main entrance of the hall. It would only take a few steps to run out and leave here along the rappelling rope. Is it the boy surnamed Yun? Why don't you come here? The voice was a little exasperated. But when Chang Ning heard this, he stopped. The boy surnamed Yun? It seems that the owner of this voice at least knows someone in Yancheng. Then he should have come up after the world-destroying disaster, and he must be a human, not a ghost. And although his words were confusing, they also contained a certain logic, not like a completely insane ghost who couldn't think. So, could there really be someone inside? He was trapped and couldn't move, so when he heard the sound of me slapping the table just now, he called for help. Chang Ning had such an idea in his mind. If it was really a human who had come up before, then he should be very helpful for him to explore the superstructure of Yancheng. At least we can communicate about what dangers there are. Otherwise, let's go and take a look. Chang Ning thought of this and walked towards the door on the right lightly. He put the machete back at his waist, pointed the desert eagle forward, and then reached out and gently pushed open the door. Then he looked into the inner room. Ah. His hair stood on end. Bang, bang, bang. His fingers pulled the trigger repeatedly out of reflex. In the room inside, a mountain of meat filled half of the room. It was impossible to tell what it was. The whole scene was extremely horrible and weird. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69, Past Events in Yancheng, Part 1. What on earth is this thing? What caught Chang Ning's eyes was a meat mountain that filled half of the room. Piles of strangely shaped flesh and blood were growing wildly around 4 large iron plates in the room. The moment Chang Ning opened the door, he had a sense of deja vu, as if he had entered a *****. Don't be afraid, don't get excited. A voice came from behind the meat mountain. It was a voice that sounded like metal friction, not human. Chang Ning looked carefully and saw that in the middle of the 4 large iron meat mountains, there was an object that looked like a human torso. The torso was skinny and the ribs were clearly visible. He was wearing a pair of tattered pants on his lower body, which looked like the black and gold clothes that Chang Ning had seen in Yancheng. His upper body was naked, leaning against a wall opposite. There was a broken hole in the wall, and his neck passed through the wall. It seemed that his head should be outside the wall. No wonder the voice sounded erratic, as if it came from outside, and as if it was inside this room. It turned out that the person who made the voice existed in such a strange posture. What are you? Seeing that the mountain of meat did not take any action, and did not feel any malice from the other party, Chang Ning asked tentatively. I am. What am I? The voice gradually became smoother, and not as harsh as at the beginning, as if it gradually regained the ability to speak. I'm the city lord of Yancheng. He continued. The city lord of Yancheng? Chang Ning endured the discomfort, and found a path in the gap between the meat mountains. He came to the side of the torso, and looked at the hole in the wall. There was indeed a human head outside the cave. This man looked very old, and Chang Ning believed that he was more than 100 years old. His face was full of wrinkles and his skin was dark. The specific shape of his facial features could no longer be seen. His mouth was shriveled, and his nose was relatively high. A pair of turbid eyes were trying to see Chang Ning clearly. His hair was sparse, with only a few tufts floating in the wind. He looked a little embarrassed, a little funny, and a little scary. Chang Ning didn't know what Yun Yi, the father of Yun Xianzu and Yun Qianqian, looked like, but he knew that Yun Yi's age would not exceed 50 years old, and according to the descriptions of everyone in Yancheng, Yun Yi was a strong man. Obviously, he was not the old man who grew on the strange meat mountain in front of him. He said that he was the lord of Yancheng. Could it be the old lord who was before Yun Yi several years ago? Thinking of this, Chang Ning asked, Lord of Yancheng? As far as I know, the current lord of Yancheng is not you, right? The previous lord was not either. When were you the lord? When? The old man's face showed a look of reminiscence. I can't remember clearly. I have been locked here for more than 100 years. Locked here for more than 100 years. Doesn't that mean that he is an old monster who is at least more than 100 years old? Chang Ning remembered that the Guinness record for male human lifespan in the 21st century was only more than 110 years old. If what the old man in front of him said was true, then he could easily break this record. Yun Yi, the last city lord of Yancheng, succeeded the city lord 20 years ago. At that time, the old man in front of him had been locked here for at least 80 years. Now, the people in the whole Yancheng don't know that there is still a person locked in the superstructure. That is to say, no one has come up to see him, and no one has brought him food and drink. How can he survive until now? Who locked you here? No one has come to see you for so many years. How did you survive? Chang Ning asked the question in his heart bluntly. The old man seemed to be very happy that Chang Ning could communicate with him. He made a weird expression at Chang Ning, but Chang Ning could feel that he was smiling at him, although the smile looked very creepy. Maybe it was because he hadn't talked to anyone for a long time. He thought for a while before he understood the meaning of the questions Chang Ning asked, and then slowly said, Who locked me here? It wasn't my filial son. He. The laughter he made this time was very gloomy, and his tone was full of resentment and hatred. He told the story of how he was locked in the upper level of Yancheng in a disjointed manner. Because he had not communicated with anyone for a long time, his speaking speed and logic were very problematic. It took Chang Ning a long time to roughly understand what he was talking about. When the old man finished speaking, the sun had already set. Chang Ning looked at his watch, and it was more than 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He sorted out the information that the old man had just narrated in his mind. His name is Yun Rong, and he is the 5th generation of the city lord of Yancheng. Chang Ning estimated in his mind that if the city lord of Yancheng iterates every 20 years, then he should live about 100 years after the world-destroying disaster. That is, in the first half of the 25th century, which is about 200 years from now. If it iterates every 30 years or so, then he should also live in the second half of the 25th century, about 150 years from now. In short, this should be a person who lived in the 25th century, more than 100 years after the world-destroying disaster. According to Yunrang's narration, the awakeners of Yuncheng were very powerful at that time. There were 3 people at the extraordinary level, including him, and more than a dozen people at the master level. Chang Ning remembered that the old mayor of Yaosun, Zhen Yang, had also told him that in the era of his grandfather's grandfather, awakeners were everywhere, and it should be the period of Yunrang. Yuncheng was established at the beginning of the destruction of the world, and is the oldest force in the Hucheng area. At that time, the one who established Yuncheng was a super awakener who was above the extraordinary, and was also the ancestor of the Yun family. Later, the city lord of Yuncheng had been inherited by the Yun family. By the time of Yunrang's generation, it had been inherited for 5 generations. But I don't know what changes have taken place in the environment. After Yunrang took over as the city lord, fewer and fewer babies born in the next generation could awaken. Yunrang had 3 children, only one of whom successfully awakened, and he only awakened a primary gust of wind system. This caused a great crisis for the inheritance of the Yun family in Yuncheng. So in his later years, Yunrang began to adopt other awakened children in Yuncheng as adopted sons. A total of 4 adopted sons, 1 extraordinary and 3 masters. He raised these children from childhood and cultivated a deep relationship. He hoped that, when he grew old and died in the future, these children could serve as brothers and sisters of his biological children and help the bloodline of the Yun family to secure the position of the Lord of Yuncheng. But before he died of old age, his most valued adopted son, Yun Xuang, who was originally an orphan, took advantage of his drunkenness to attack him and tried to kill him. Yunrang was very surprised. He never thought that Yun Xuang would rebel. He had always been very good to Yun Xuang, even closer than his own children. After Yun Xuang attacked him, he found that Yunrang was unkillable. Yunrang was an extraordinary awakener, and he awakened to the unyielding system. Chang Ning had also heard of this system. It was a rare, but famous awakening ability. Xiao Bao and 2 companions went to explore the underground of Yuncheng before. The male companion was an awakener of the unyielding system, which led them to escape unscathed under the siege of a group of cave dwellers. In simple terms, the ability of this system is to be able to withstand beatings. The primary unyielding is like a bronze skin and iron bones. At the extraordinary level, one can even regenerate flesh and blood. Even if one's hand or leg is cut off, it can grow back by itself. This makes it impossible for Yun Xuang to kill Yunrang, so he has to secretly transport him to the previous building in Yuncheng and come up with an extremely cruel way to lock him up. Chapter 70, Past Events in Yuncheng, Part 2. Time went back to an unknown time, maybe 150 years ago, or 200 years ago. Anyway, in those long years ago, something big happened in Yuncheng. Yunxiang, the adopted son of Yunrong, the lord of Yuncheng, took advantage of Yunrang's weakness after fighting with the extraordinary awakeners of other forces and subdued Yunrang. Yunxiang wanted to kill Yunrang on the spot and lied to the public that Yunrang died of his injuries. However, Yunxiang didn't expect that even Yunrang in his weak period could not be killed by him. The extraordinary Indomitable has almost unlimited limb regeneration and flesh and blood restoration functions. Yunxiang tried for a long time, but only heard Yunrang screaming constantly, but he didn't seem to be dying. So he had another plan in mind. At this time, Yunrang was extremely weak and could hardly move. Yunxiang tied him up and took him to the upper platform of Yuncheng. Almost no one came up here, and it was always silent. After putting Yunrang in a closed room, Yunxiang found 4 square iron plates with a side length of about 1.5 meters. This was the most handy thing he found in the nearby mechanical station. The 4 square iron plates were made in the same way, about 10 centimeters thick, with a tiny hole in the middle, about 1 centimeter in diameter. Yunxiang threw Yunrang to the ground and grinned at him. "Aren't you immortal? Can't you keep regenerating flesh and blood? I'll let you regenerate enough today." After saying that, he swung his knife and cut off one of his arms. Although the blade was almost useless after this cut, Yan Shuang also used up all his strength, but he finally cut off Yan Rang's arm. Then, the flesh and blood between the chopped off arm and the broken arm began to wriggle, and the two were attracted to each other, as if they were magnets. The flesh and blood vessels in the middle began to grow, and they were about to reconnect. At this time, Yan Shuang placed an iron plate between the chopped off arm and the broken arm, and aimed them at the hole, that was only about 1 centimeter. A cluster of blood vessels mixed with flesh and blood passed through the hole, connecting Yan Rang's broken arm to the arm on the ground. The flesh and blood grew rapidly, as if it couldn't wait to restore the broken arm. But there was an iron plate in the middle. Even the flesh and blood of a transcendent awakener could not penetrate the iron plate and grow together. The broken arm was connected by a cluster of blood vessels and muscles about 1 centimeter long, and the flesh and blood on the rest of the cross-section frantically wanted to cross the iron plate and connect to the other side. But the iron plate was about 1.5 meters long. So Yan Rang's flesh and blood grew more and more, and soon covered the entire iron plate, and connected on the 4 sides of the iron plate. The iron plate was like nesting in Yan Rang's arm, and this arm became deformed and twisted, which was extremely terrifying. Because the bones were not connected, Yan Rang's arm could not use any strength, and could only hang on the ground. The deformed connection made this arm continue to grow frantically, until it became a pile of weird flesh and blood. In the same way, Yan Shuang cut off Yan Rang's other 3 limbs, and inserted them into the iron plate. Yan Rang was locked in this room. Although he would not die for a while, he could not move at all. The crazy flesh and blood of his limbs absorbed most of the nutrients in his body, and he began to become skinny from a strong old man. Just stay here and rest. I'll come to see you later. After Yan Shuang finished all this, he turned around and left. He planned to come back after a while to confirm whether Yan Rang was dead or alive. The awakeners of the extraordinary level were not invincible. Yan Shuang had seen many extraordinary people fall. The simplest thing was that without water and food, it wouldn't be long before an extraordinary person would be drunk to death, or starve to death. In Yan Shuang's opinion, Yan Rang, who was completely unable to move in this closed room, and had turned into a monster, was doomed to die. Yan Rang himself thought so. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, I don't know if Yan Shuang forgot or something unexpected happened. He never came up. Thirst and hunger made Yan Rang want to live but not die. He banged the wall with his only movable head like crazy. He actually knocked a hole in the solid wall. He stuck his head out of the hole he knocked out, and the cool breeze outside brought a drizzle, and the rain fell on his dry lips. He was alive again. In this way, his body was locked in the room, turning into a pool of weird flesh and blood, with his head sticking out of the wall, exposed to the wind and sun. When it rained, he opened his mouth to catch the rain. When it was sunny, he would lie still and pretend to be dead, waiting for stupid scavenging birds or insects to crawl to his mouth and let him eat and swallow them. He himself could not imagine that he could live so long under such circumstances. 1 year, 2 years, 10 years. Yan Shuang seemed to have forgotten that there was a foster father imprisoned by him in the upper level of Yansheng. Yan Rang never waited for him again. More than 100 years have passed in the blink of an eye. Logically speaking, he should have died of old age. But I don't know whether it is the effect of the awakening ability of the unyielding or the unexpected bonus of his current weird state. He has survived all this time. But he feels that he doesn't have much time left. 100 years ago, his biggest wish was to escape from this weird state and kill Yan Shuang, the bastard. 50 years ago, his biggest wish was that someone would remember him and come up to save him. Even if he left Yanqing alone from then on, he would accept it. 20 years ago, his biggest wish was that someone could climb up unexpectedly just to say a few words to him and tell him what it was like down there. 5 years ago, his biggest wish was to see a living human being before he died. Just now, he heard the sound of Chang Ning slapping the table and was overjoyed. Regardless of whether it was a human or not, even if it was a bear that strayed into the upper layer of Yansheng, Yan Rang wanted to call it over and take a look at it. Even if it was a mad ghost. He had seen several mad ghosts climbing up and down at the entrance of the cave, but none of them passed by him. No matter how hard he shouted, he couldn't even call a mad ghost over. Even if the one making the sound was a mad ghost, it would be fine to let it come over and eat him. This was Yunrang's idea just now. However, he actually called a human over. Judging from the appearance of this human, the people down there seemed to have forgotten him a long time ago, but he was still very happy that he could talk to a real human being before he died. Chang Ning patiently communicated with Yunrang for several hours and almost figured out what happened to him. He took out a military water bottle and some compressed biscuits from his backpack and fed them to Yunrang. Yunrang ate them with his toothless mouth in tears. Chang Ning frowned and thought for a while, then took out a machete and said to Yunrang, "I will try to cut your messy flesh and blood and then remove the iron plates to see if it can be restored." Yunrang did not comment. His turbid old eyes looked at Chang Ning as if he was looking at the most precious thing in the world. Chang Ning came to Yunrang's left arm, took a deep breath, and swung the machete with all his strength. Bang! It was like cutting on a hard stone, and the flesh and blood on the iron plate only showed a light white mark. It's a bit tricky. This is an extraordinary level of unyielding. Chang Ning's physique is only a little stronger than that of ordinary people, but it can't break Yunrang's defense at all. It seems that only Yun Qian can try, but Yun Qian is only a master level awakener, and it is hard to say whether she can cut Yunrang's flesh and blood. There are almost no extraordinary people in this era, at least not around Yuncheng. Is it because the defense is too strong that this old man is hopeless? Yunrang saw Chang Ning's distress, forced a smile, and said in a hoarse voice, "Forget it, you can't break it. If you really want to save me, I guess you can only find a laser weapon from the Yuncheng treasury." Yuncheng treasury? Laser weapon? What is this? Chang Ning looked at Yunrang with a little confusion. Fourth floor. The fourth floor of Yuncheng is a huge treasure house, which contains countless supplies and advanced weapons. Only the city lord knows the entrance. Although those weapons can't let an ordinary person beat the extraordinary, it should be no problem to break the defense. It's the fourth floor. Could it be that this old man knows the entrance to the fourth floor? Chapter 71. The entrance should have been discovered earlier. During the days when Chang Ning was in Yuncheng, he often went to the third floor when he was free. He explored almost the entire third floor, but still did not find the entrance to the fourth floor. He was a little skeptical whether there was really a so-called disaster relief material allocation center on the 4th to 16th floors. It couldn't be a solid building filled with metal. But now this old man confirmed his idea that there was indeed a bigger treasure house on the 4th floor. I know there is a treasure house on the 3rd floor of Yuncheng. Is there one on the 4th floor too? Why didn't I know I could enter the 4th floor? Chang Ning asked in a puzzled manner. Yunrang shook his head. The so-called treasure house on the 3rd floor is just used to confuse others. There are indeed some things in it, but I'm afraid it has been used up by now. Chang Ning agreed. Indeed, when I went there some time ago, there was almost nothing in it. The treasure house on the 4th floor is 100 times larger than the one on the 3rd floor. The daily necessities in it can be used by Yuncheng for hundreds of years, even if no one in Yuncheng works. Is it so exaggerated? The location of this treasure house was a secret passed down from generation to generation by the city lord. After Yun Shuang plotted against me, I guess no one in Yuncheng knows it anymore. So, where is the entrance? Yunrang looked up at the blue sky, as if in a trance. After a while, he spoke softly. It's above the treasure house on the 3rd floor. Above? Yes, there is a small room in the warehouse on the 3rd floor, right? Diagonally opposite the small room, there is a handle on the ceiling that can be pulled horizontally, and you can see the stairs. There is such an operation? Chang Ning suddenly realized that it was no wonder that he had not found the entrance after searching for so long. It turned out that the entrance was not a normal staircase at all, but was set on the ceiling. Few people go into the treasure house on the 3rd floor of Yuncheng. Generally, only a few high-ranking people have the right to enter. Moreover, there are no windows in the treasure house. It is illuminated by whale oil lamps. The light is dim and cannot reach the 5 or 6 meters high ceiling on the 3rd floor. For more than 100 years, no one thought that there was a larger treasure house in Yuncheng, so no one looked for it. In addition, the entrance was hidden very cleverly. Although people kept coming in and out for more than 100 years, they had never found it. Since I knew that it was the Shanghai Emergency Relief Material Allocation Center, I was sure that there was a larger warehouse, which was most likely located on the floor above the third floor. However, I always focused on the normal corridors and stairs. I searched the entire third floor and never thought of looking at the ceiling. Knowing the exact location of this entrance, Chang Ning couldn't help but feel a little stupid. In fact, Xiao, the warehouse manager before the world-destroying disaster, had given him some information. The material handling in the warehouse was done by robots. The image that appeared in Chang Ning's mind at that time was a group of humanoid machines with infinite strength on caterpillar tracks, carrying materials back and forth in the warehouse. But if you think about it carefully, you will know that in this kind of multi-story warehouse, the most convenient transportation robot is to set up on the ceiling, through fixed tracks, and use mechanical arms to transport it very conveniently. And the entrance to the fourth floor is on the ceiling, which is also very obvious. Since there is no human participation in the storage and logistics process, the storage channel must be based on the convenience of robots. Is there a robot that can work on the ceiling through fixed tracks more conveniently than the entrance on the ceiling? If Chang Ning had figured this out earlier, he would have found the entrance long ago. Seeing Chang Ning in a daze, Yunrong said again, "It's easy to find. The entrance is not small. There are stairs on it. You can pull it down directly. Ordinary people can also climb up." Chang Ning nodded. "Is there a laser weapon inside? Can it break your physical defense? You go in and look for it. I remember it's in a very deep place. You need to look carefully." "Okay." Chang Ning agreed. "I will go down to find the laser weapon later. If I find it, I will come up and try to rescue you." A look of relief appeared on Yunrong's old face. "It doesn't matter whether I can get out or not. I estimate that I have a few months to live at most. It can be regarded as a wish to see a living person before I die. Even if it's only a few months, I can walk around and see it. It's better than being locked here all the time, right?" Chang Ning retorted. Yunrong smiled. "Okay, then I'll leave it to you." "Are you kidding? This is the first living extraordinary awakener that Chang Ning has seen. How could Chang Ning let him die here silently? Then I'll get ready to go down. It will be dark soon. There may be a mad ghost coming up. I can't deal with that." "Okay." Yunrong looked reluctant. Is this the end of his first conversation with a human in more than 100 years? "Whether you can find it or not, remember to come up and tell me," he added. Chang Ning nodded. "Definitely." Then, under Yunrong's reluctant eyes, he turned and walked out of the room and left the security booth. The sun was setting, but it was estimated that there were still about 2 hours before he could go down the mountain. He had prepared a rappelling rope, and it would not take more than 5 minutes to go down, so he could continue to look around here. His purpose of coming up was to explore the 168th floor. After being delayed by Yunrong, he almost didn't collect any valuable information today. However, the communication with Yunrong also made Chang Ning gain a lot. He not only knew the exact entrance to the material allocation center above the 4th floor, but also learned more about the past of Yuncheng. It is obvious that the city lord of Yuncheng after Yunrong, starting from Yun Shuang, has always adopted the adoption inheritance system, which is related to the sharp decrease in the number of awakened people more than 100 years ago. By now, there is only one awakener in 100 people, and the probability that the city lord's child happens to be an awakener is too small. If he is not an awakener, he cannot control the entire Yuncheng. This system was not changed until Yun Xianzu's father Yun Yi. I don't know if he is too lucky or he is really the chosen one. His 2 children who survived the first black moon were all awakened. One is Yun Xianzu, a master awakener of the decomposer system and an irreplaceable source of various materials in Yuncheng. The other Yun Qian is even more powerful, a master fighter, and maybe the most capable person within a radius of hundreds of kilometers in this era. In this case, Yun Yi naturally could not follow the so-called adopted son inheritance system. This also laid the groundwork for his conflict with Yun Wu and Yun Qi. Only then did Yun Yi disappear and Yuncheng go into civil strife. But fortunately, all this is over, and Yuncheng has calmed down again. And with the efforts of Chang Ning, Zun Lu, and Yun Xianzu, it is rapidly developing towards the good side. I believe that it will not be long before Yuncheng will become the dawn of human civilization in the doomsday. With such random thoughts in his mind, Chang Ning still took cautious steps to move towards the gap between the two buildings of the superstructure. In fact, the foundation of the superstructure is also very vast, with a side length of about 600 meters. Chang Ning climbed up from a corner, and the rope tied to his body was not long enough for him to walk to the gap between the buildings. So he had to turn back to untie the rope, walk forward more than 200 meters, and tie it to the outer railing again in front of the security booth. After tying the rope, throwing it down, and hanging it on the rooftop of the 21st floor, Chang Ning breathed a sigh of relief, and looked up at the environment behind him. Hey, is this line extending from the wind turbine just now? Chang Ning saw a wire exposed outside the building, like the kind that was illegally built in the old world. One end of this line seemed to lead to the wind turbine he had just repaired. The other end seemed to extend to a room on the 3rd floor above. What's in it? Is it powered now? Chang Ning's eyes lit up, and decided to go to that room to take a look. Chapter 72 Video Recorder. The wires bent and spread, forming a zigzag shape on the tall walls of the upper buildings of Yuncheng. One end was connected to the wind turbine that Chang Ning had just repaired, and the other end stretched into a 3-story window on the roadside. Chang Ning looked around and saw nothing unusual. Then he took out the flying claw, threw it upwards lightly, and hooked the window. Most of the buildings here no longer have glass, and the room where the wires spread did not have any. So almost silently, Chang Ning began to climb up the rope to the window. First, he climbed onto the roof of a roadside shop, and then passed by the window of a 2nd floor room. Chang Ning looked inside, and saw that it was full of rotten furniture and peeling wall paint. Not long after, he climbed the lower edge of the 3rd floor window, and turned over to go in. Although this room also had signs of corrosion, it was lighter than the room on the 2nd floor below. It felt like this room had been abandoned for even less time. In fact, there was almost no difference, but Chang Ning's keen perception after awakening made him aware of the subtle difference. Could it be that after the end of the world, someone continued to live here for a while? He looked around the room. It looked like a study room, with a desk and a computer on it, and a small sofa on the other side of the room. The desk was made of wood, and had been corroded to be quite fragile. But it could be seen that many scratches were carved on the desk, one after another, almost covering the side facing the chair. If it was a normal family life before the end of the world, no one would scratch or draw on their desk, right? Can we assume that someone did live here after the end of the world? There was nothing else in the room except the desk and the sofa. Chang Ning pushed open the door, turned on the flashlight, and walked to the next room. Behind the door was an aisle, and there was another room opposite. This house had good lighting, and even in the aisle, the light was very sufficient. Chang Ning turned off the flashlight and first looked at the other side of the aisle. It was a living room with sofas, TVs and other furniture that were common before the end of the world. In front of the TV was a device that looked like a game console, about the same size as the PS and Xbox that Chang Ning had seen in the 21st century, with 2 handles connected. Next to the game console, there were small square objects scattered all over the floor, with colorful patterns printed on them. They looked like game cartridges or storage disks. There were surprisingly many small cubes, almost forming a small mountain. Chang Ning wondered if the owner of the room had bought all the games published in that era. Obviously, normal people would not have so many game cartridges, not even the 21st century otakus. On the other side of the mountain of cartridges were some messy food packaging bags. Facing the TV was the sofa, on which were also many things placed in a mess, most of which had rotted and could not be identified. Behind the sofa was a dining table, which was also covered with all kinds of garbage. It seemed that the owner of this house did not pay much attention to hygiene. Chang Ning concluded in his mind. Carefully bypassing the garbage pile on the ground, Chang Ning stood next to the dining table. From here, you can see the kitchen opposite the dining table, which has also been completely unrecognizable. Opposite the kitchen is the main door of this house, which is obviously different from the small door inside the house. It seems that there is no valuable information. Chang Ning thought that there seemed to be another room opposite the study room he had just entered that he had not explored. He turned and walked back, gently pushing open the door opposite the study. This looks like a bedroom, with a large bed, a wardrobe, a wall-mounted TV and other facilities. The most striking thing is that there are 2 skeletons lying on the bed. These 2 skeletons look like the size of adult skeletons, which is obviously different from the underage skeletons that Chang Ning had seen in the wild before. Judging from the length of the skeleton and the condition of the pelvis, there is a man and a woman here. The hands of the 2 skeletons are connected together, as if they were clenched before death. But there is a revolver in the other hand of the male skeleton, which is the police pistol style that Chang Ning had seized from Xiao Bao before. The muzzle of the pistol is stuffed in the mouth of the skeleton. Chang Ning turned to the other side and took a look. The skull of this skeleton was shot off, so it should be suicide by swallowing a gun. Chang Ning can imagine that there were 2 people living together here. They ate junk food together and played games together. Later, for some reason, the woman died. The desperate man lay next to the woman and ended his life with a pistol, holding the woman's hand tightly before dying. Are these 2 people survivors of the world-destroying disaster? Chang Ning looked around and found something that looked like a camera on the bedside table near the male skeleton. There's another video to watch. He walked over and skillfully mobilized his awakening ability. The star power surrounded the camera and quickly repaired it. Then he took it in his hand and found the switch power. Ding dong. A red empty box with low power appeared on the playback screen. It still needs to be charged. It seems that when I explore the upper level of Yuncheng in the future, I have to carry a small mobile power bank with me. Although this room is connected to the power supply of the wind turbine, it is too far away. It may be troublesome to repair the lines in the middle one by one. Why not charge it with the power of the diesel generator in Yuncheng after going down? Chang Ning searched the bedside table and found something that looked like a wireless charging stand. He put it in his backpack and took it away. It seems that, because of the popularization of commercial nuclear fusion before the apocalypse, the electricity bill was greatly reduced. Chang Ning has not seen many charging cables in the old world. Almost all electrical appliances in the old world use wireless charging technology and do not care much about power waste. After searching the bedside table, he opened the closet again. Most of the clothes in the closet had rotted. Unexpectedly, he found an umbrella in the corner of the closet. It was the means of transportation that almost everyone had before the end of the world, which he saw in the surveillance video on the lower floor. At that time, people in the upper class of Yuncheng basically relied on this thing to go downstairs. Is this also electric? Chang Ning thinks it is very likely. Before the end of the world, electricity was almost inexhaustible. If it can be powered by electricity, it will not use biofuels. Chang Ning dared not simply repair this thing and then prop it up and jump down. He had never used this thing and was not sure if there was electricity in it. But the act of jumping down from a tall building with an umbrella was indeed very cool. Chang Ning still put away this umbrella and planned to study it after returning. After making sure that there were no other valuable items to collect in this room, Chang Ning looked at the watch and saw that the sun would set in about an hour. It's better to go down first. If you go on time, who knows what kind of accident you will encounter? If Li Ling comes up as soon as it gets dark and the 2 face each other, it will be troublesome. Chang Ning no longer hesitated, put away his backpack, returned to the place where the rappelling rope was tied, turned over and jumped down. After sliding for about 5 minutes, Chang Ning's feet stepped on the ceiling of the 21st floor of Yuncheng. Although this day was theoretically spent in Yuncheng, it always felt like a long journey and even a feeling of traveling through time and space again. Chang Ning decided to go back to his room to relieve his fatigue, and by the way, check the contents of the video recorder, and then look for the treasure house on the 4th floor after dawn tomorrow. After eating and taking a shower, Chang Ning saw the green light on the video recorder. It looks like the charging is complete. He wiped his half-wet hair, sat on the chair, and turned on the video recorder. Chapter 73 Doomsday Rescue Video. This camera from the 24th century also has a small screen that can be used for direct playback and preview. After turning on the camera, Chang Ning clicked on the screen for a while and found the folder where the videos were stored. There are many video files in it. The dates are from 2334 to 2342. The storage time span is a full 8 years, and there are dozens of them. The two people in that room are indeed survivors of the apocalypse. The apocalypse occurred in 2331. I don't know what happened from this year to 2334, but there have been video files since 2334. This small video recorder is a precious material for studying apocalypse disasters. Chang Ning quickly adjusted his sitting position and carefully clicked on the first file to play. July 13th, 2334. The screen of the video recorder flashed and then went black. What's going on? Can't play it? Chang Ning was shocked. It was just like seeing a huge melon on Weibo's hot search just now, and when you were about to click in to eat the melon, you found that all the posts had been deleted. Fortunately, the screen went dark for a while, then lit up again, and the 4 words "now playing" appeared on it. Now playing? Where's a picture? 4 words mean now playing? Chang Ning noticed that a beam of white light lit up from the front of the recorder, and the beam of light hit the wall in front, and the picture began to appear on the wall. It turned out to be a recorder plus projector in one. This 24th century technology is really... Chang Ning was speechless for a while, looking up at the picture on the wall. However, the playback size and clarity of this projector are really much better than those on the small screen. Although this design made Chang Ning complain, it looks more convenient after all. He adjusted the position of the recorder to make the projection clearer. A room was shown on the screen. Judging from the layout, it was the bedroom on the 3rd floor that Chang Ning had just explored. The screen shook, and then a figure came around from behind the camera. It was a little boy about 10 years old. The boy was very handsome, but his hair was long, and it looked like he hadn't taken care of it for a long time. He was wearing an ill-fitting piece of clothing, which was a bit too big for him, and looked like adult clothing. This child lacks the lively temperament of a child. On the contrary, he has a calm face, and looks like a little adult. He stared at the camera for a while and said, "I found a video recorder at 92,807 today. This is the 17th video recorder I found. I hope this one can be used." Then he turned to the back of the screen. With a click, the screen went black, and the camera displayed playback completed, and then the small screen automatically jumped to the file list. It seems that the first file is a boy testing whether this camera can be used normally. It seems that he has picked up many cameras, but they were all broken until this one. Chang Ning thought that the video recording of the security booth also broke down at the same time as the apocalypse event. Could it be that the apocalypse event affected most electronic products in this world? The boy looked obviously without adult care. His hairstyle and clothes were very casual, and his face was a little dirty. But he was not lacking in nutrition and his complexion was not bad. From this video, it seems that the two people in the room were children before the end of the world. He also remembered the many children's skeletons he saw in the wild from Yaosin to Yuncheng. Is there no adult after the end of the world? Is this the doomsday, when all adults evaporate into thin air, leaving only a group of children? This guess is a bit ridiculous, and Chang Ning continues to click on the next video file. This time the scene is in the living room of that house. You can see that the living room and the camera is still very clean. Although it is not the spotless house before the doomsday, there is no garbage piled up, and the furniture looks new. A warm look. A little girl is sitting on the sofa in the living room. She looks about the same age as the little boy in the previous file, both about 10 years old. This little girl also has long hair, but it is a little messy, as if it has not been taken care of for a long time, and the clothes she wears are several circles larger than her actual body. She is staring at the camera with round eyes, and her chubby face is full of expectation. Chang Ning notes that they all died silently in the superstructure of Yuncheng later. Now seeing that they are still alive, some sadness arises in his heart. The picture shakes again, and the little boy comes out from behind and sits on the sofa side by side with the little girl. The two of them sit very straight, with their hands on their legs, looking a little nervous. "Hello." The little boy speaks to the camera. The little girl also smiled shyly at the camera and waved. "My name is Chen. The little boy continued. "My name is Xiao. The little girl interrupted. "We have been trapped on the 91st floor of the Shanghai development building for 3 years." The little boy began to narrate. 3 years ago, people in the Shanghai development building died one after another. My father told me that the world was going to be destroyed and we would all die within a few days. Later, my father died, my mother died, my sister died, and all the neighbors died. But I never died. After everyone died, the tap water stopped a few days later, and the electricity was gone a few days later. I went to the elevator in the center of the development building and saw that the elevator broke for some reason and fell down. Anyway, I was trapped here. Fortunately, there were food and drinks in this building, and there were some children who survived like me. But for some reason, those children gradually developed superpowers and became like Superman. They began to beat people, smash things, and throw dangerous things around. I had to hide again until I met Xiao. The two of us hid in room 91077, went out to find some food at night, and slept at home during the day. Until half a year ago, I found that those children with superpowers were gone. I don't know where they went. But now, it may be that Xiao and I are the only two people above the 91st floor. The two of us moved to room 91633, where they lived before. This room was the only room with electricity. The elevator was broken, and most of the parachutes were broken. We didn't know how to get down. If you are an adult, can you come up and take us down when you see this video recorder? It's so big here, and there are only two of us. We are very scared. After saying that, he pursed his lips, then turned to look at Xiao. Do you have anything else to say? Xiao shook her head. She seemed to listen to Shen very much. Shen continued, have you found the rope? Xiao nodded and pointed behind the sofa. Shen stood up and walked towards the video recorder, saying as he walked, then let's tie up this video recorder and put it down to see if anyone can pick it up. After saying that, there was a click and the screen went black. Chang Ning was stunned. There was still a lot of information in this video. First of all, after the world-destroying disaster, at least in the superstructure of Yancheng, all the adults died, and the ones who survived were children, and they all looked like small children. They should be about the same age as Shen and Xiao, both between 6 and 8 years old. There are not many of them. Shen said that they have been living in the room connected to the wind turbine. It is estimated that there can be no more than 10 children living there. Secondly, most of these children have become awakened and have various abilities, but it is obvious that the children's worldview and outlook on life have not been perfected. After suddenly having superpowers, they can no longer control themselves. Among the children who survived in the upper layer of Yancheng, only Shen and Xiao did not awaken, so the two of them depended on each other and avoided the bullying of bad kids. But suddenly one day all the bad kids disappeared. Should they have gone down? Were those children the first group of people to build the current Yancheng? This resulted in only Shen and Xiao, two children and their teens, left in the upper layer of the huge Yancheng. They instinctively wanted to ask adults for help, so they came up with the idea of using a camera to ask for help. If the survival of the apocalyptic disaster described by them is universal, that is to say, the current human civilization was built on the ruins of the doomsday by a group of children of a few years old, no wonder people today are almost illiterate and have no skills or techniques passed down. Because the founders of the post-apocalyptic wasteland civilization are a group of children who have not had time to learn the civilization of the old world. All the adults died, but the children survived. What happened? Chang Ning continued to click on the following files with doubts. Chapter 74, Early Years of Yancheng. The next video file was shot on July 25, 2334, more than 10 days after Shen and Xiao's video request for help. Chang Ning clicked on this file, and the video recorder read it for a few seconds before starting to play this video. In the video, a new boy's face began to shoot with a handheld video recorder. This boy looked a little younger than Shen and Xiao, about 7 or 8 years old. In other words, he was at most 4 or 5 years old when the world was destroyed in 2331. In the picture, the boy's face occupied most of the screen. Although his hair was also loose, it was obviously roughly cut, probably with a knife or other sharp tools, to cut the hair directly, and he looked much more energetic. It was not clear what he was wearing. Judging from the shoulders that were occasionally exposed, it was probably a rough animal skin coat. It had a bit of the flavor of the residents of the small town in the 27th century. The boy smiled at the camera, revealing 2 rows of teeth, some of which were missing. It was not known whether it was during the tooth replacement period or because of injury. He began to speak in a leaky voice. Hello. Shen and Xiao. I'm Yunji. We met upstairs before. There are no adults in this era, and no one knows how to repair the elevator. We can't go up for the time being. But the 2 people who bullied you the most before, Yanzu and Wujun, have been eaten by wild beasts. Among the rest of us, everyone has agreed not to bully any human beings anymore. You hang in there for a while. We will continue to look for adults or people who can repair the elevator. There should be food up there, right? I remember Yanzu hid a game console in room 92,141. If you are bored, you can find the game console and play games in room 91,633. There is electricity there. By the way, we are hunting every day down there now, and I will bring you some meat to try. As he said that, he put the video recorder on a table next to him, then turned and walked to a staircase exit and walked down. Chang Ning could clearly see that this was the 21st floor rooftop of Yancheng, but it was not as desolate as it is now. There were no weeds or shrubs on the roof at that time, and it looked very flat, just like an ordinary rooftop in the 21st century. When Yunji turned away from the camera, Chang Ning could see that he was indeed wearing a set of animal skin clothes. Although the tailoring was rough, it was more suitable, much more suitable than Shen and Xiao's clothes. After a while, the camera began to vibrate, and Yunji dragged up a giant pig animal with a body length of more than 6 meters from a staircase exit. The giant pig was still struggling hard, and the entire rooftop of Yancheng was shaking under the giant pig's hooves, but Yunji dragged the giant pig's tusks with both hands, and the pig was unable to resist, and was dragged all the way to the camera. Yunji smiled at the camera, then stretched out his pink little hand and slapped the giant pig's head. The giant pig wailed and fell to the ground. He then took out a small knife from his waist, cut along the back of the giant pig, and then flipped his hands and cut off a long strip of meat. This is the tenderloin, the tastiest part of the pig. I'll tie it to a rope, and I'll shake the rope later. If you find it early, you can take it back and have a fresh meal. As he said this, he tied the tenderloin to a rope hanging from a high altitude behind him. It was probably the rope that Shen and Xiao used to hang the camera. Then he turned around and smiled at the camera. Anyway, come on. I'll go get busy first. Then, the camera was turned off. After watching this video, Chang Ning began to speculate whether this kid named Yunji was the founder of the current Yancheng, the legendary existence that surpassed the extraordinary. From the way he controlled the wild boar, it seemed that he didn't seem to be struggling at all. A kid who was only 7 or 8 years old made such a move, and the picture gave people a great sense of shock. However, the pig-shaped monster was obviously too weak, even worse than the land shark that showed off its power at the gate of Yao Town. So there is no way to get Yunji's specific strength from this picture. But it seems that he should be at least not weaker than Yun Kai and Qian. Judging from the video, Yunji and some other children who came down from the upper floors of Yancheng have settled down in the current floors of Yancheng and often go out to explore and hunt. Almost every one of them is a very strong awakener. Although the beasts outside have also undergone some changes and many evil beasts have appeared, it seems that these human children still have the upper hand. However, the children are inexperienced after all, and they often seem to be careless, and there are still some casualties. For example, the 2 most active bad kids in the upper floors of Yancheng died in the fight with the beasts. Generally speaking, this is a pioneering era when the old world has just been destroyed and the new world is being established. Chang Ning continued to click on the following video files to watch. The next file is a video of Shen and Xiao pulling the camera and pork up and thanking Yunji. Then there is a video of Yunji giving them other food. This camera seems to have become a communication tool for these 3 children, and the 3 of them seem to be getting more and more familiar. However, the problem has never been solved. These children do not know any technology in the old world, and there is no need to think about repairing elevators. How Shen and Xiao can go down, the three of them have been discussing back and forth for several months. In fact, if Chang Ning was there at the time, he would have taught them to tie a rappelling knot and come down directly through the rope. But can 3 children under 10 years old understand this? The way Yunji and his friends came down from the superstructure was through the original elevator shaft. In Yuncheng, the middle part of the Hucheng development building in the old world, there is a huge elevator shaft that can accommodate dozens of elevators, and there are escalators and stairs next to it. This elevator shaft was the main way for the residents of Yuncheng to go upstairs in the old world. It can accommodate thousands of people at the same time. But after Yunji and his friends came down, a small earthquake broke the elevator shaft in the middle. Buildings without human maintenance have a very short lifespan and do not have much resistance to some natural disasters. After discussing for several months, they determined that Shen and Xiao were trapped up there and could not come down temporarily, and the communication between the two sides became less and less and gradually became sparse. After March 2335, the next video file jumped to 2341. There was a full 6-year gap in between. Did Shen and Xiao give up? Are they willing to keep eating the food left over from the old world, keep playing games, and become two lonely but happy otakus? Or has Yunji given up on rescuing them? Or has something happened in Yuncheng that has caused Yunji to be unable to communicate with Shen and Xiao? With this doubt, Chang Ning clicked on the video of March 2335. Chapter 75, Entering the Supply Center. What puzzled Chang Ning was that this video in July 2335 was no different from the previous ones, and there was no sign that the upper and lower parties were about to break off relations. Yunji still greeted the two upper level people in a friendly manner and politely brought some prey for them to eat. Then it stopped abruptly. It was as if all the videos that followed had been deleted. Wait, all deleted? Chang Ning remembered that in the 21st century, the content in some communication tools would be deleted, such as two young lovers breaking up, or like-minded good friends parting ways. At this time, many people would choose to delete the previous chat records, as if this would alleviate some of the pain. Did the upper and lower parties fall out later? Then Shen and Xiao deleted the videos of their exchanges in the middle? Otherwise, how to explain this sudden stop? Chang Ning sighed and continued to click on the next video, 2341. The picture jumped a few times, showing the only room with electricity on the upper level of the post-apocalyptic Yuncheng that Chang Ning had explored. It has been 6 years since the last video. The furnishings in the room are much older, but still neat and clean. The main screen is still the sofa, with a young girl sitting on it. She stared at the direction of the camera with round eyes, and the tenderness in her eyes seemed to overflow. This is Xiao 6 years later. No more ill-fitting clothes, no more slightly silly expressions. Xiao has now grown into a big girl, with a body of 16 or 17 years old, full of youth. Shen turned out from behind the camera and worked side by side with Xiao, just like the first video they shot. The two smiled at each other, and this look is love. Although they live in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, and the upper structure of Yuncheng, which originally housed more than 100,000 people, now only has the two of them, but judging from their expressions, they are no different from the little boys and girls in a middle school in the 21st century. Today is Xiao's 16th birthday. I decided that I would record a video for every birthday in the future to record what we look like every year. When we are old, we can snuggle together and watch our past one by one. As they said that, the two looked at each other again and held their hands tightly. Is this dog food from 300 years ago? Chang Ning pouted and continued to watch. I have explored the 91st to 99th floors, and the supplies have been classified. It should be enough for Xiao and I to live until we are old. Xiao, leave everything to me in the future. Xiao nodded shyly. Chen, I will listen to you. Today is your birthday. I will take you to the 93rd floor. There is a clothing store there. I will take you to choose new clothes. Yeah. The two showed their love in front of the camera for a while, then turned off the camera, probably to go shopping in an empty shopping mall. Chang Ning looked at the shooting dates of the following videos, which were almost 1 year apart. That is, they were all shot around Xiao's birthday. It seems that the two have lived a happy life. Looking at the watch, it was already 11 o'clock. Chang Ning was going to sleep first and get enough energy to explore the material center on the 4th floor of Yuncheng tomorrow. I'll watch the video in the camera after I finish exploring. After yawning, Chang Ning fell asleep on the soft animal skin mat. The next morning, Chang Ning got up before dawn as usual and went to the rooftop to exercise. I didn't see Li Ling climbing up and down today. Everything was very peaceful. After the sun rose, Chang Ning went back to the room to wash up and have breakfast. Under Su Panpan's resentful eyes, he went out to look for Yun Kai Qian. Yun Kai Qian was at home today, but she hadn't gotten up yet. She was still lying there snoring, drooling from the corners of her mouth, and her sleeping posture was very bad. Hey, get up. Chang Ning shook her. What time is it? Yun Kai Qian smacked her lips, replied impatiently, turned over and continued to sleep. Take you to eat delicious food. Chang Ning took out a trick. What's delicious? Sure enough, Yun Kai Qian's tone immediately improved. Although she was still a little sleepy, she seemed willing to communicate with Chang Ning. Remember the treasure house above the 4th floor that I told you about before? I found the entrance. Let's go in and take a look today. Really? Yun Kai Qian jumped up. She clearly remembered that Chang Ning told her that there were canned food that she couldn't finish in the treasure house above the 4th floor. She had dreamed for many days in a row that she entered the 4th floor treasure house and lay in a pile of canned food of various flavors. She could eat whatever she wanted. Now that her dream suddenly came true, she jumped up quickly. Let's go. Why don't you wash up and eat something before leaving? What to eat? There are canned food inside. What can I eat outside? Can't I save some stomach to eat delicious food? Yun Kai Qian pushed him from behind. Hurry up, hurry up. Chang Ning was pushed out of the room with a helpless look on his face. The two took the diesel-powered elevator down to the 1st floor of Yuncheng and entered the treasure house along the route they took to the Yuncheng treasure house before. Huandong was still on duty in the treasure house. He was very happy to see Chang Ning and Yun Kai Qian. Chang Jiangzang, Kai Qian, what supplies are you looking for today? Chang Ning glanced at Huandong. Have you learned the shotgun blueprint? He still remembered that Huandong was dragged by Zunlu to make a shotgun a few days ago, and he looked desperate when facing the blueprints on the ground. Huandong's face twitched. I roughly learned it. I made it according to Chang Jiangzang's method. After all the parts were manufactured and assembled, about half of them can be assembled and used normally. Chang Ning also twitched his mouth. This person's scrap rate reached half, which was really useless. No wonder Zunlu thought he had a problem with his IQ. Huandong saw Chang Ning's expression and showed a trace of helplessness. After all, I can't compare with inventors Chang Jiangzang and Zunlu. I will work hard. Chang Ning nodded. You can stay in the outer room. We will go in by ourselves. Because he was not sure whether the entrance was still there and what would happen after entering, Chang Ning did not plan to take Huandong to explore together, so he just let him wait outside. Huandong naturally had no objection. Together with Yun Kai Qian, he used 2 keys to open the door of the treasure house and then went back to his bedside to continue studying the drawings. He didn't know what Zunlu had given him. The office of Ji Xiao, the warehouse manager, was in the left corner opposite the entrance. According to Yun Rong, the entrance to the 4th floor should be on the ceiling in the right corner of the door. They walked into the treasure house and closed the door casually, and then Chang Ning looked up to the right. It was really dark and nothing could be seen. The height of the floor here was estimated to be 5 or 6 meters, and the Wei oil lamp was burning on the wall about 1 meter away, and it could not illuminate the ceiling above. Chang Ning took out a flashlight and shone it upwards. There was really a handle on the ceiling that could be pulled. However, the handle was very small and far away. Even if there was light on it, it would take a careful look to find it. It should be there. He directed Yun Kai Qian to move many boxes and stack them under the handle, piling them more than 3 meters high. Then he climbed up carefully, grabbed the handle, and pulled it hard. Perhaps because no one had used it for a long time, the handle was very sluggish. Chang Ning used a lot of strength and pulled it 3 or 4 times before he pulled it open. A square hole about 2 meters long and wide appeared on the ceiling, and there was another handle above the hole. Chang Ning gently pulled the handle down, and a folding ladder fell down from the ceiling. He turned his head and tried to look at Yun Kai and Qian, then climbed up the ladder. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.